Meeting of the Board of Education. Please rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get to roll call, I just wanted to mention really quickly that as many of you may be familiar, we have a student at Friendship Elementary who is currently in the hospital fighting really hard. So I'd like to take a moment of silence for anyone who'd like to pray or quietly reflect. So if you'd please join me in a moment of silence for that student. All right, thank you. Can we have roll call?
Here.
Mary Lee Hall.
Here.
Samantha Hall.
Here.
William Hall.
Here.
Jeremy Nash.
Here.
Jennifer Hinkle.
Here.
Nathan Hinkle.
Here.
James Holly.
Here.
Elizabeth Wilson.
Here. All right, and then before we move on, I need to announce 3 executive sessions. We had one on student discipline, another on a personnel matter, and then a final one on safety, school safety. We also had our education finance budget meetings this past Tuesday. All right, moving on to approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any nays or abstentions? That motion carries. Next, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented for the Personnel and Policy Committee meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Any nays or abstentions? We have several minutes. I'll go ahead and roll 3.02 through 3.04, and we'll go ahead and I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for items 3.02 through 3.04, the regular board meeting, the Finance and Budget Committee, and the Education Committee minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any nays or abstentions? That motion carries. And then finally, next we'll move on to 4.01, our student representative report. Take it away.
I'm Caleb Ross. I'm a sophomore at Susquehanna High School, and I'm filling in for Caroline. So we're entering a busy season, spring season. The spring musical is this weekend with shows on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Saturday at 7, Sunday at 2, and tickets will be available online or at the door. Spring sports are starting. It'll be a competitive season, some postseason hopefully. And there will be a signing day for committed seniors who are playing sports in college. You should let Mr. Keeney know if you are any one of those. Prom will be soon. Tickets are on sale. The theme is Tangled in Our Memories after the movie Tangled. And there will be a balsa and salsa competition which pairs 2 engineering students and 2 food students construct a wood bridge and make the best salsa. This will be judged at the Arts and Science Fair on April 25th. And dual enrollment night is tonight, so anyone interested in dual enrolling should be contacting their guidance counselor or anyone else familiar with the matter. There will be an indoor drumline competition this Saturday at Cumberland Valley High School and a jazz fest. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next we have item 5.01, National Merit Scholar Awards. Sorry, that's, I printed this out too early. Okay, that's actually happened next month. All right, we have 5.01 educational updates. Are you taking that, Dr. Bryson?
I will.
All
I'll
right.
take that in Dr. Reppert's absence. Although we all miss Dr. Reppert this evening, I will try to do the educational updates justice in his absence, which is a challenge. This will also be a collaboration of his update, and I'll try to do my closing remarks at the beginning so that I combine them all into one. And since I'm going first this evening, I'll not have to scratch anything off my list, hopefully. Earlier this month, the district participated in our annual bus evacuation drills, which represented a collaborative effort with our bus drivers, transportation and maintenance departments, and school and administrative staff, practicing safe, quick, and effective evacuation from the buses. Big thank you to Board Director Mr. Hash for attending, observing, and supporting during our bus evacuation procedures. During our recent in-service, our faculty and staff participated in district-wide safety training sessions focusing on mental health. Our presenters included Susky alum and local licensed social worker Kara Wojcik, Jenny Beadle from PCBH, Cindy Richards from Suicide Prevention of York, and Detective Richard Blaze from the Southern Regional Police Department, and school resource officer for a neighboring school district, not to be mentioned, as the district continues its focus on mental health awareness and values the partnerships and support from organizations such as these. As many event participants and spectators experienced this year's Battle of the Buildings was outstanding. Competition was intense, but loads of fun, and the best part, the event raised over $8,700 benefiting our students in the form of scholarship opportunities from the SYCSD Foundation in conjunction with the Alumni Association. In addition, Coats of Friendship also benefited through donations of outerwear for those in need throughout the community. All in all, an outstanding evening. Also under Dr. Reppert's supportive, as a follow-up to the information shared last month regarding the York Community Art Scholars Exhibition sponsored by York College, which featured entries from a number of students. 2 of these entries received special recognition. Alyssa Fowler's photography entitled Manara won first place, and Audrey Reeves' digital media piece named Red Demon won second place. Congratulations to both Alyssa and Audrey, and to all of the students recognized last month for amazing entries that highlighted their exceptional artistic gifts and talents. Our students continue to excel and shine this time with the spotlight on the Pennsylvania Media and Design Competition, where all 5 of our student groups placed in the top 3 throughout all of the entries from across York and Adams counties. Emma Blazek placed second in the logo category. Christian Break placed first in the 3D design category. Jacob Brent and Aiden Mosley placed second and third in the 3D design category. Ryan Rees placed first in the animation category, and Isabel Rappel placed third in the logo category. In addition, first place winners Christian and Ryan will progress to complete at the state level at Dickinson College on May 21st. Special thanks to Mr. Bowers and Mr. Lewis for their ongoing support of our students. Each of our elementary buildings has hosted special events over the last several weeks, multicultural night and art show at SES, as their theme, Out of This World, suggests it was out of this world. FES Literacy Night was a magnificent success as well, and the entire building was packed with parents and community members. And Shrewsbury's Multicultural Fair this past Tuesday night was phenomenal as well. As we have mentioned, a number of our board members have enjoyed reading to several of our elementary students, with this month welcoming Mr. Hinkle and Mr. Hash to the reading chairs. We appreciate our school board directors sharing special time with our students and staff, which I know was enjoyable for them as well as the students and staff that were there. Speaking of reading, Shrewsbury invited some from our admin offices to visit and read classrooms at each grade level in celebration of Read Across America. It was the best part of the day by far, and the students and staff were great hosts and totally amazing. The months of February and March have been months for music, with grades 3 through 12 treating us the outstanding orchestra concert, the Susquehanna High School Orchestra Chamber Concert performing with excellence, as well as a number of regional festivals. Staying with the music theme, we are looking forward to the upcoming SHS Spring Musical, Once Upon a Mattress, which was just mentioned, starting tomorrow night and running through Sunday. If you've never been around the high school the week before, I think they're here well beyond darkness. So a lot of hard work put into that, and I think many of us are excited to go out and see the performance. Mrs. Dauberman will share more, but our spring sports programs are off to a great start. Congratulations goes out to our SHS Powerlifting Club under the supervision of Mr. Nick DeLuca. Several of our Susky students received medals at the competition in Allentown on February 24th. Addison Vickers, first place. Megan Voss, first place. Jaden Collapstel, second place. Charlotte Rhodes, second place. Sagan Marks, third place. Evan Allen, second place. I didn't go into all the events because we get in all kinds of weights and events, but overall, for a brand new club, outstanding performance. And I also want to note that many of the Susky powerlifters set personal records. 18 of our lifters, I say that again, 18 successfully qualified for nationals in New Orleans this April. And finally, Sagan Marks has officially qualified for and will be competing at the 2024 IPF World Bench Press Competition Championships in Austin, Texas this May. Again, a big thanks to Mr. DeLuca for volunteering his time for these students and providing them an opportunity to show their Susky pride. Through a program sponsored by the New Freedom Lions Club, our fourth graders were given the opportunity to research a number of nonprofit organizations and then select 3 of those nonprofits to be the grateful recipients of a donation on behalf of the Lions Club program. Give from the Heart, which our students epitomize, the York County SPCA and York County Veterans Outreach, as well as Penmar Human Services. We're so appreciative to be chosen by our students to each receive a donation as provided by the New Freedom Lions Club, a partnership we continue to value throughout our district. Once again this year, shout outs to our operations director, Mr. Buffington, for sharing his expertise during last week's Pennsylvania Association of School Business Officials Conference in Hershey. Randy's presentation this year, Facilities 101, what every facilities manager needs to know, was extremely well attended and much valued, especially by individuals new to the position in operations and management. Randy always does the district proud and certainly spotlights his vast experience. And just for the public's understanding too, I know from experience in being there, facilities managers are much like administrators and teachers right now, very hard to come by, and they really tap on Randy as one individual to come and present to help support the new facilities managers across the state. And from my understanding, the room was absolutely packed, so thank you, Randy. Most recently, in keeping up with our district's goal of preparing our students to be college and career ready, SHS hosted the College and Career Fair, provided our students the opportunity to speak with representatives from businesses, the military, as well as various colleges and universities. Special thanks to College and Career Transition Coordinator Matt Ammerman, as well as our guidance and counseling staff for a great event. And lastly, for Dr. Reppert's collaborative culture, I want to congratulate the faculty and staff at Susquehanna High School and Southern Middle School for becoming certified in Level 1 of Marzano's High Reliability Schools. Your buildings need to be proud of this accomplishment. At this point, the Southern York County School District is the first district in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to be certified in Level 1, and a huge thank you to the entire school district and community for your dedication and support. Last but not least, the past Monday evening, We hosted nearly 100 guests, including representatives from local businesses, representatives from state and local government, staff, students, administrators, board directors, during our annual community leaders and partnership meeting. The topic this year, the mystery of science throughout the district, focused on the district's fascinating and second-to-none science curriculum. The evening's program featured science activities across grade levels, highlighting the district's implementation of the Pennsylvania's new science, technology, engineering, environmental literacy, and sustainability standards, and short for that is STEELS. So if you hear the term STEELS, that's what we're talking about. Presentation was provided by our students and staff, engaged the evening's guests in the exploration of science through hands-on activities. The responses were overwhelming that the presentation absolutely set the evening apart, with requests to continue to provide these hands-on curriculum-related opportunities in the future. Thank you to each of our valued guests, to our amazing presenters, to our Whitson's Culinary Group, and to all those who had a part in the evening's event. Big special thanks to Dr. Repper and Dr. Hughes, who both played a significant role in the planning of that evening. And as the participants in the evening learned, we were already started planning for next year. So, just a few reminders. The Rising Senior Night will be held on Monday, April 8th, starting at 5:30 at Susquehannock High School. The second, third grade music performance is at Friendship Elementary on Tuesday, April 9th, starting at 7. Happy upcoming birthday during the month of April, the board director, Mr. Holly. Didn't know you were on the list, did you? And if you hadn't realized it yet, spring break begins on Wednesday, March 27th and extends through Monday, April 1st. We hope everyone has a relaxing spring break as we gear up for the home stretch of the school year. To merge Dr. Reppert's and my closing remarks, have a great spring break or not. Choice is yours. And always remain warrior strong and keep living your dream.
Thank you, Dr. Bryson. Moving on to item 6.01, public comments. Just want to remind, when you come up to speak, please state your name and your municipality of residence. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. We are going to be enforcing that, and we will have, in order to help you, we'll have the time up on the screen. I believe we've got that going. Also, I want to remind, because it seems like it's required, courteous and proper decorum are going to be required during the presentation. That's going to be required from the speakers as well as from those sitting in the room. And I'm going to extend that to the entire board meeting. We will be expecting that during the presentations. That is part of our board policy 903. All right, so first commenter, Roland Apgar.
Good evening. My name is Roland Apgar. I'm a resident of the Glen Rock Borough. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here tonight. The reason I asked to speak at the meeting, it relates to the just under 200 acres that the school district owns outside of the New Freedom Borough. I believe it's in the township. And I believe we're coming up on 20 years that the school district has owned that property. And to the best of my knowledge, it's never been used in any real meaningful way for the district. So the only thing that I ask of the board is to maybe reassess whether that should be retained, or since the real estate market seems to be strong in both agriculture and residential, whether that property could be sold, whether it's in its entirety or partially, and that money may be reinvested back into the district in a different way. So that's all. But if you'd be willing to at least, and you may have looked into it already, I don't know, but it's just something that I've thought about over the years, and so that's all I have to say. So if anybody has any questions of me, I'll try to answer them, but if not, that's it.
I do have one question, if you don't mind. What makes you ask the question? Were you looking to purchase some of that land, or?
No, not at all. Just as a stakeholder, being a property owner within the school district, I mean, for years I've just wondered,
Sure,
what the district plans, and, nothing would happen. So I figured the appropriate forum was here, and I just bring it to your attention, and it may already be on your radar, maybe not, but, so no, I have no interest in purchasing anything.
Sure. I know before I was here, where Shrewsbury Elementary School is, that land was owned by the school district for many years. Mr. Holly, you would probably know how many. And that was one of my first questions coming onto the board. What are we doing with all that land in New Freedom? And the answer that I got was that we keep the land because you just don't know how many kids we're going to have, what it's going to look like in the future and census, and we will need it eventually. But I really didn't get any further answers from that. Would anyone else like to add?
I mean, I think we can discuss this a little bit later if you want, but I mean, I think it's worth looking at our enrollment trends in considering that and whether there are any other reasons. So, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Val Dennis?
My name is Val Dennis, and I live in Shrewsbury Township. Tomorrow, our 2016 Susquehannock High School alumni son will become a father, and we will meet our first grandchild. Thank you for the opportunity to share ideas and observations this evening. I will continue to be at the Mason-Dixon Diner on Tuesdays at 7 to have conversations with anyone who would like to discuss education. Thank you to all those who have come to the diner. It seems that there is more of a tendency to argue than to discuss. It seems that there's a whole lot of us versus them, right, left, right, and in many more directions. None of this will be useful to our students. It is time for us to talk with each other instead of at each other in whatever committee or meeting or situation we find ourselves in, and then make choices that benefit our students. I realize that this is not simple. It is, however, essential. Last month was Black History Month. This month is Women's History Month. I am often asked why we have months, and I believe that we will have months until we know just as much about the achievements of marginalized peoples as we do about the majority. The movie winner Oppenheimer left out all of the women scientists. There's a book about these women, and how many of us can name 5 scientists? How many of us can name 5 female Black scientists? This, for me, is why we have the months. At the February school board meeting, we experienced powerful emotional courage. How will we respond? We have multiple options. To listen, most of all. To ask students, families, and school staff to share their experiences so we can understand. To ask questions, fear of other people taking something, or fear of conflict, job loss, lawsuits, frustration or anger, ethics, taking action, new conversations and policies and procedures. We are choosing now how we act in response to the emotional courage that we heard last month from our parents. My intention tonight is to share ideas and the words and stories of others. I will run out of time, and I'll return. Moving education forward for our students is not a race or an argument. It's a marathon, and it's teamwork. I have chosen to listen and to ask for the experiences and stories during my 34 years in education. For wealthy, white, Black, Hispanic, Muslim, Hindu, gay, trans, Christian, Jewish, and many more ways that we define ourselves as being human. When we choose to listen, we do not necessarily agree. We do begin to understand and to see how we can all live together in this democracy. We are the same, and we are different, and that's okay. It would be easy if we were all alike. It would be easy if education was simple, and neither is true. Each community has its compassion and its challenges. The compassion and the challenges are different in each area for multiple reasons. Over the past decade in our community here, and in communities next to ours, I have heard and observed the following. When I was little, I used to drink lots and lots of milk, hoping my skin would become lighter. How did someone as poor as you get into National Honor Society? They said we should be in ovens like the Holocaust. Students here don't use the N-word. Students have received phone calls from the KKK and been given KKK membership cards by other students. I looked up the word democracy this morning, the American Heritage Dictionary. One of the descriptions is the common people, considered as the primary source of political power. And just who are the common people? Everyone or not? A democracy does not reach perfection. A democracy requires continual teamwork by each of those who live in the democracy. We have work to do here in our part of this democracy. Marian Tursky, a survivor of the Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland, recently warned, "Do not be indifferent when any minority suffers discrimination." I watched German teenagers doing volunteer work at Auschwitz several years ago. During a class discussion in Mannheim, Germany, teenagers in my friends' English classes asked me, "What is the reason that people in the United States do not want to discuss the tragic and dark parts of history there?" Public schools are a mirror of society. We have work to do, and it begins with respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Natalie Boer.
Natalie Boer, New Freedom. Thank you for hearing and really listening to the outcry of parents and children and addressing the no tolerance policy when it comes to the racial hate and bullying. There's still a lot of work to do, but it's a start. Some people in the community have asked me why I brought up issues last month that happened over even a decade ago to my children and my family. Well, if you've missed the point, it's because it shows a pattern within these walls and a pattern that needs to be broken, and how long our children have been affected by the racial harassment while in school. And, you know, Lord, I've been overwhelmed with the social media presence this last month, with people fighting in the community, making assumptions based on misunderstandings, and not fully grasping the light that's being shed on this subject. So many people are making this out to be a political agenda, and again, like I said last month, this isn't a political view. This is bigger than the left and the right. As a community and as parents in this district, we're divided, which reflects on our kids. I pray we can come together in unity, because this type of behavior only leaves room for more discrimination when you demonstrate anger from misunderstanding. The email we all received was inclusive, not just about racial attacks, but bullying in a whole. Was the email prompted due to the recent racial attacks? I'm sure it was, but it shows that our administration is actually listening and trying to not only encourage the children and the parents to be compassionate, talk to one another, and explain what racial hate and bullying does to someone's mental health. It lasts a lifetime. You know, addressing racial hate and bullying, I need you to understand that the bullying and the racial harassment, it's a double-edged sword. Let me ask you, where's the love, the compassion? Why aren't we embracing equality and diversity? Speaking up about racial discrimination is far from a decisive tactic, as stated by one of our sitting board members on a public comment a couple of weeks ago. And may I add, it never will be a decisive tactic, sir. Our children's minds are being filled with poison daily, a poison that isn't healed overnight. Like I said, it'll last a lifetime. The community can hopefully follow the lead of our administration and work together to create a healthy, non-hostile environment for our children. And I would also like to speak about the missed educational opportunities that our school district is failing to provide our children. 2 months ago, it was brought up about the lack of knowledge and education that our students receive from our school name, where it was derived from, about the Native tribe. Last month, it was brought up in regards to, the lack of teaching with Black scholars and Black history throughout the entire year, especially during Black History Month. But instead, we were in here fighting against the racial harassment that has been going on for decades. We have National Hispanic Month that starts in September, so hopefully, we see that next school year. We need to embrace different cultures. This is, if we want to be a fully cultured district in a teaching environment, these teachings need to be incorporated. And one last thing, it's great that we have culture clubs in high school, but I feel these clubs should start at an elementary level and be student-led for the needs of the students in a safe space for them. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Katie Weber-Poe.
During the meeting last month, Mr. Hinkle, you mentioned Mr. Rogers, and I've been thinking about that a lot. So, Mr. Rogers took a stand against racism so that his young viewers would be less burdened by the overt racism of his time. In 1969, Mr. Rogers shared a footbath with Officer Clemens, a black police officer. An act of kindness and inclusion that they could model for young viewers. It may seem simple, but at the time, swimming pools all across America did not allow black or brown kids to swim. It was an incredibly courageous act to take on a national stage. As Mr. Rogers knew, our children learn from our actions, not just our words. Mr. Rogers advocated for teaching children about anti-racism, mental health awareness, disability, grief, and loss. He encouraged open, honest, and heartfelt dialogue about these topics with young children. Nathan, you and I agree. We need more people like Mr. Rogers in the school system. As was shared by the courageous mothers last month, kids in our district, as early as kindergarten, are facing racism in our schools. And I was so pleased to see that the board, I have a migraine. And I was so pleased to see that these stories had such an impact on the board, and I was pleased to hear that the board wants actionable steps on how to address the racism in our district that is causing very real harm to our students. The challenge is the only way to address the racism that exists in our schools is to acknowledge the board's own actions and words that have had a harmful impact on our students. It's important to understand how concept like colorblindness, shared by Mrs. Hall last month in her comment about not needing to learn about race, is at its core a refusal to take public note of race, which allows people to ignore a manifestation of persistent discrimination. It is also important to come to terms with the harmful impact of resurrecting the warrior head mascot that it has had on our community. This act is racist as it appropriates power from the Conestoga Susquehannock people in favor of an already privileged folk who feel entitled to the image. And when we as a community use dehumanizing mascots, we are planting the seeds of future racism to take root. If you truly want to see discrimination, or if you want to see a decrease in racism among the students, it has to start here. When we find ourselves becoming resistant in a heartfelt dialogue on the enormity of the impact of racism in our culture, think becoming angry at terminology like white privilege or critical race theory. If you find yourself getting reactive to that, you need to check in with that. If you find yourself dismissing the experience of students of color, you need to check in with that. I encourage us all to come to the understanding that that discomfort is our growing edge. It is the experience of cognitive dissonance. It takes real strength of character, courage, curiosity, and empathy to lean into it. And only in doing so can change happen. Without this piece, it is like framing a house without pouring a foundation. I can only hope that the board can muster up some courage like that of Mr. Roger to make real meaningful change. It's hard to do these things, especially if your political identity is tied up in not doing these things. But kids in our district are hurting. And I, for one, my kindergartner, I don't want to see him be impacted by these things. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Chris Ruggieri.
Good evening, Chris Ruggieri, New Freedom, Pennsylvania. Thank you for letting me comment tonight. I wish to comment on the proposal of school board directors' access to school buildings. While I appreciate the board's motivation to oversee the operations of the district firsthand, I see no reason to develop a special access profile for them. I take issue with the type of request being proposed. In the December board meeting, Mr. Joseph Wilson, quote, requested school board directors have access to all school buildings all the time. My direct concerns for school board directors having such access includes a lapse in knowledge for secure entry and exit protocols due to infrequent visits, not realizing an access badge was lost or stolen between visits, which could be an extended period of time, an inability to attend drills and maintain familiarity with school response to emergencies, and disruption to a conducive learning environment if observation extends into the classroom or other activities. Furthermore, this type of unfettered access for board directors would likely add legal requirements for the board, including background checks, mandatory reports of arrests or convictions, recurring security training and attendance of drills, revising school handbooks for access protocol, and a district policy to address security violations by board directors, ranging from censure to expulsion from the board. To be honest, I think we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't really exist. After reading through complex Pennsylvania statutes and the district policies, people needing access to school buildings already fall into one of three categories: employees, which are the administrators, teachers, and staff; volunteers, who are responsible for child welfare or have direct volunteer contact with students, which I have clearances on file; and visitors, which are all those wishing to visit the school without clearances on file. My question is, what additional access or privileges would board directors need that someone classified as a volunteer would not have? With visitation policies already in place and adequate, I see no reason to undertake the chore or risk of developing special access for board directors. They can apply for volunteer access just like their constituents. Moreover, it could be perceived as dubious for the school board to vote on a policy that provides itself with special privileges. While likely well-intentioned, it could be construed as self-serving without scrutiny and could create yet unrealized security ramifications. Finally, and most importantly, this proposed policy would likely violate an existing district policy already in force. Policy 709 for building security, authority for granting access to district buildings is vested solely with the superintendent. As it currently reads, Section 709, Policy 709, quote, the superintendent or designee shall develop administrative regulations designating who may be authorized to access district buildings and the designated level of access. In other words, if school board directors want special access to buildings, the board would need to request the superintendent to grant them such access pursuant to Policy 709. Thank you for your time. Safety is paramount for our children, and we must remain vigilant in protecting them at all costs.
Samantha Cole.
Thank you. Samantha Cole, Glen Rock. My daughter was 6 when she got her first pair of glasses. Glasses are a lot cooler now than when I was a kid, so she had no issues with bullying when she showed up to class with her brand new accessory. Thankfully, we also purchased a warranty because she was still 6 when she broke them for the first time. It was that first day without them that my sweet, shy 6-year-old daughter told me how a boy in her class told her repeatedly throughout the day that he, quote, liked her better with glasses. Her voice started to break and tears filled her eyes. He said he likes me better with glasses to hide my ugly face. Later that same year, I was made aware by parent volunteers that there were serious issues relating to violent words and behaviors in my child's classroom. That's at Friendship. Now, to be clear, I talk to my kids, but no matter what I wanted for my daughter, when I asked questions like, did anything happen at school today? I got the usual replies of, not really, it was good, or every parent's favorite, I don't know. I didn't hear how another student's behaviors targeted girls, including his teacher, and escalated to throwing chairs and desks at them. But she got an extra recess when they were rushed out of the classroom for their safety. I heard about the extra recess, but not the reason. And from the administration, I had proactively heard absolutely nothing. That spring, she climbed into the car and opened with, "Hey, guess what? Students stabbed me with a pencil today." Her crime was sitting down next to him for math centers. And this story may be familiar to some of you because I wrote to the school board at that time about it. So thank you to Mary Lee Hall for being the one person to reply at that time and for your compassionate responses. I bring this up today because we have had many students and parents stand here and speak up about bullying in our schools. As a parent and an active volunteer in our community, I know that this is something we all collectively care about. I am shocked at how often little girls in our schools are being called ugly or similar by little boys. It happened to my kid at 6 before she was jabbed in the arm in the 1st grade. But after hearing the stories from those around us, how much worse would her treatment have been if she was black? What if she was Native American? What if she was anything else that made her different? When we see a mother crying at one of these meetings because her child was a target of racism and bullying starting in kindergarten, we can and should be heartbroken. But I don't think we can be surprised. As I mentioned earlier, I have had positive and compassionate exchanges with certain board members, and so I hope that you will listen to me because I do think that some of you have your hearts in the right place. When we speak about things like a logo, the crux of the issue is the culture that having that logo feeds. When a statement or action is called out as racist, it can feel like an attack. It's not. It's okay to course correct when you learn that your words and actions or lack thereof are hurtful. Doubling down in your efforts to change absolutely nothing for the better is not. No matter how well-meaning, saying that our families didn't need to learn about race growing up is dismissive when used as a response to the pain of people speaking about what they've endured. I don't think it's meant that way, but I urge you to think about how you would feel if you stood up here and said, my child is hurting every day and I'm required to keep sending them here every day, year after year, please help us. To hear only, but we care about God's children. In your eyes, do they cease to be God's children if they're not white or straight? Maybe if families had learned about race growing up, then you would feel differently. I'm also a volunteer with Sandy Hook Promise, which is an organization that seeks to prevent violence in schools. Among the top 10 indicators precipitating a violent event in schools, and I'm choosing my words carefully in case children are watching and I don't want to terrify them, are chronic loneliness and social isolation, bullying, especially if targeted toward differences in race, religion, gender, or sexual orientation, and bragging about access to guns or weapons. If families glorify weapons on one hand and dismiss the concerns of people who are not exactly like you and your family on the other, then your hands are building a culture of violence in our community. When you receive questions about the reason for your push for unlimited access to our schools and our children, and your response is nasty or accusatory, you are building a culture of intimidation and fear. You have heard all of us speak, so the tired line about how can we know what's going on in schools if we can't see it is an obvious deflection. It sounds more like piggybacking on real concerns that actually matter to us to drive your own agenda of intimidation. Why should anyone, let alone someone with so little respect for the mothers of this community who dare to question them so much that they can write, review, and send such belittling emails comfortably from their official board member email address, have unfettered access to the children of York County? You were voted in to provide more transparency, correct? You related to a lot of us about the lack of transparency in the past, but when asked, you act as if you're the God you speak of. That's a lot of protesting for a board that supposedly has good reason for what they do. Thank you.
Thank you. Steph Musser.
Good evening. My name is Steph Musser. I'm a parent, taxpayer, and alumni living in Cadorus Township. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. The topic I'd like to address is expanded access to all school buildings for school board directors. I assert that some additional research is necessary prior to the board crafting new policy. In the board policy manual, under item 002, board powers, it reads, The board, in accordance with its statutory mandate, shall prepare procedures for its own operation and policies for the guidance of the chief school administrator in the operation of the school district. Such procedures and policies shall be consistent with law, have a rational and a substantial relationship to a legitimate purpose of the board, and be directed toward the maintenance and support of a thorough and efficient system of public education in this district. In my professional capacity as a fundraiser, when I propose a new strategy to a client, I take several steps to ensure that the strategy aligns with the goals that we want to achieve and try to minimize risk. First, I identify the problem we're trying to solve. I gather any data related to that problem or specific case studies that will help identify where the current strategy is failing. Next, I determine the outcome that this new strategy is meant to achieve, being sure to outline exactly what metrics look like for success. Because I work with nonprofit organizations, cost is a foremost concern. So the next step is to identify any barriers to success or potential liabilities that this particular strategy could involve. I urge the school board directors to take a step back and develop a more thoughtful approach. Lay out the problems they are trying to address. Identify where current policy is failing to achieve their goals, and be clear with taxpayers what the metrics look like for a successfully executed plan. Use the data you have available. Dig into specific case studies and identify the strengths and weaknesses of the current process. If the board decides to proceed this evening with the newly expanded access to our teachers, students, and school buildings without careful consideration of the pros and cons, I have several concerns. How does arriving in the middle of a class unannounced interrupt instruction for the day? Will our youngest students have difficulty paying attention to the lesson? What about our students who have an IEP? Does arriving in the middle of a lesson without any discussion with the teacher truly offer a clear picture of what classroom instruction is meant to accomplish? Do any of you hold a degree in education, or are you qualified to make judgments about the quality or effectiveness of a classroom lesson? Has the board examined potential legal liability? Does this policy run afoul of teachers' contracts or infringe on the rights of students or our teachers, opening the school to costly litigation? What would the added cost be to taxpayers if your policy does flout the law? How will the board address the concerns of parents that don't want school board directors interacting with their students and interrupting their day? I thought long and hard about what I'm going to say next, but I think it's important. I ask you, as school board directors and your surrogates, to please stop using a victim of a sexual abuse to justify your policy decisions. Again, yesterday on social media, I saw community members talking about a student, and it is a frequent topic in public comment at these school board meetings. Survivors of abuse have already had the very essence of their privacy and personal bodily autonomy stripped from them by their abusers. Please don't abuse them again. Let them decide when and where, or if they ever want to talk about this again in their life. I don't think it was anyone's intention here to harm an innocent child, but if you and your supporters continue to do so, I will assume that is your intent. In closing, dealing with issues like discipline in the classroom, bullying, or prevention of abuse, and providing the best possible learning experience for all students are complex and challenging. They require the close collaboration of the administration, teachers, parents, students, and the school board. And there's no single simple solution. Creating a chaotic atmosphere in the school and cultivating a relationship with teachers and students predicated on suspicion, subjugation, and fear will make it impossible to collaborate and come up with effective solutions. As elected officials, you owe it to taxpayers to take a careful and considered approach, one that is consistent with the law and is directed towards the maintenance and support of a thorough and efficient system of public education in this district. Thank you for your time.
Michael Hopkins.
Hello, my name is Michael Hopkins, and I reside in Shrewsbury, Pennsylvania. And I'm here this evening to express both my gratitude and my appreciation and my prayer support for you all as a board. It's obvious, as I've listened to the discussion tonight, obvious that there are many things that you have to deal with, and that we know the greatest answer, the best answer, comes from the Lord. And with this in mind, I would like to pray a prayer of benediction for you all, that God would bless you, that God would give you all wisdom as you move forward in dealing with the issues that you face. So I'd like to pray at this time. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and Lord, we thank you for your saving grace through Jesus Christ our Lord. Father, we thank you that your word teaches us that where there is no vision or no word from the Lord, the people perish. But Lord, you've told us that if any lack wisdom, we can ask of you, and you'll give to all men liberally. Lord, we pray that you would bless the board tonight and moving forward. May you give them wisdom as they seek your will and they seek your mind on these issues. Dear Father, we pray that you would bless them, and may they follow that scriptural admonition to trust in you with all their heart and to lean not to their own understanding. And in all their ways may they acknowledge you, knowing that you will direct their paths. Lord, we pray that you would bless them and use them for your glory. And Lord, as we think about this time of year, this time of Easter, Lord, we are so grateful for your gift to us, to give us your Son, Jesus Christ, to die for our sins, that those who put their faith and trust in him might have eternal life. And Lord, we pray these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Megan Gilbert.
Hi, everyone. I am Megan Gilbert. I live in New Freedom, and I have 3 children in high school. I want to talk tonight about the proposal to give extended access to the school buildings by school board directors. It's a little hard to comment because it's very hard to find details of exactly what this policy will look like. So I thought I'd pose some questions that I have that I hope you're able to address. My first question is why? Do you want to do this? How do you plan to use this access? What will you not use this access for? Will everyone be required to go through a background check? Do you plan to walk into classrooms unannounced? If you do plan to do that, will there be a limit of how many times that you can do this? Certainly, if you plan to walk into a classroom in the middle of instruction, I have serious questions and concerns about doing that. I think it's very disruptive to do that to the children. I think it's very disruptive to do that to the work of our teachers, and certainly walking into a classroom unannounced would be very disruptive. I think of all of the pressure on our teachers right now to make sure they get in all of that work as that testing comes at the end of the year. And I'm also curious if that is your plan, and again, it's still, I'm wondering, like, what do you expect to learn from that if you are able to go into a classroom? You know, when you go into a classroom, it's a snapshot. You don't see all of the context of the instruction that went in the days and weeks before that. And to my knowledge, you are not professional educators. You do not have the credentials to evaluate the instruction that is happening. It's like me walking into an operating room and trying to judge what a surgeon is doing. I am not qualified to make those kinds of decisions. I certainly support parent involvement. I certainly support parents being informed, but I certainly want professional, trained, experienced educators making decisions about instructions. I think if parents want to dictate everything that their children is taught, that's great. I think homeschool is the appropriate venue for that. I know a lot of you talked about wanting to make sure that parents have a choice, and my choice for my children is that they have this level of professional education that they have received every year in this district. More on that, I plan to speak at other meetings, but I want to stick to the topic here. And again, this is all, I'm making some guesses as to why you want to do this. So certainly I think you have a responsibility to be transparent with us on the details of this policy, why you want to do it, how you plan to do it. I echo what other people said. This seems like a solution in search of a problem. Not really sure why you want to do this. I have deep concerns about how this will impact our teachers and their desire to stay in this school district. It's no secret that there is a teacher shortage now, and it is only going to get worse. And I think we need to take some serious consideration about what the policies we do will impact teachers, how they will impact our students, and how they will impact their parents. So I look forward to hearing from all of you about why you want this policy. I don't think I can stay for the whole meeting, so I will watch it later, but I want you to take some serious consideration, listen to what other people have said, because this seems like just not a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Sierra Y.
Sierra Y, Shrewsbury. I would like to first show recognition to Southern York County School District Superintendent and principals for their efforts to publicly acknowledge and address the reported and non-reported incidents that are happening throughout the schools in this district. Also, congratulations to Southern York County School District for being named first in PA to have all schools certified high reliability. In order for Southern York County School District to continue this reputation of first Pennsylvania school district to achieve level 1 high reliability certification, it is imperative that the school district administration be consistent with the student code of conduct, board policies, state and federal laws and regulations. Implementing these policies will foster safe, supportive, and collaborative learning environments to all of Southern York County School District students. I would like to apologize for using profanity last month during a public comment. As a loving mother that is heartbroken by the discrimination and the harassment that my children and other children are facing in this district, I allowed my overwhelming frustrations get the best of me, and I was out of character. On February the 16th, 2023, I spoke at a Southern York County School District Board meeting regarding how my children's civil rights were being violated in Southern York County schools and how the school administration was failing to uphold their discrimination policies. I shared that my son was victimized with racial slurs and comments twice in 1 week by 2 different students in Shrewsbury Elementary School, and a racial incident that my daughter experienced in Susquehanna High School, resulting in her being struck with the object in the classroom. Mary Lee Hall was one of the first and only 2 board members to immediately approach me after the board meeting and to offer her sympathy and ensure that the board would look into my concerns. I never heard any follow-up or feedback from her or any other board member after that meeting. During the last board meeting, Mary Lee Hall also was the first to express how she was touched and felt pain that was being relayed by other discrimination and harassment incidents that were reported. Moreover, she stated, "We are Christian people. We never needed to teach our children about race. My family are Christian people, and we teach our children about race. We teach our children about prejudices to all people in this world that they're facing on a daily basis. We believe every word in the Holy Bible, including Proverbs 22, verse 6. Train up a child in which he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." My children are being raised and taught with Christian morals and values. Therefore, we discuss all forms, like I said, of race daily and biases. As she stated as well, God knows our hearts, and only a true Christian can be identified by the fruits of the Holy Spirit. It was also stated that the administration are doing as much as they can to follow the policies that are written and question how much more they could do. I suggest mandatory cultural sensitivity training for all Southern York County School District students, teachers, and administrators. Hold students and faculty accountable for their actions for all forms of discrimination, while amending the Student Code of Conduct to specifically prohibit all acts of discrimination or microaggressions. This is a proposal not to infuse our children's education with CRT or political indoctrination that will divide rather than unite. I propose that the Title IX coordinator oversees the district efforts, collaborate with school administrators to ensure that proper discipline is being executed, keep record and expel repeated offenders, and report these harassments going on that is reflecting the community more than a district. It was mentioned that the reports that are seen did not align with the amount of public comment that is received stating what is happening. Myself and another parent publicly spoke on how reports were being silenced, swept under the rug, and how school officials failed to offer Title IX reports to parents or teachers until, to parents or students until 2023. Parents have been reporting discrimination harassment incidents for over a decade in the school district. And until the recent racial comment that went viral, school administrators failed to acknowledge, publicly address the problems. Moreover, many Black, brown students are being raised in this community become desensitized as a psychological coping mechanism and have learned to ignore the racial comments and slurs. Therefore, they aren't reporting the experiences to their teachers, counselors, or the school administrators. I'm not going to go over time this time, so.
That's fine. Thank you. Peggy Kopp.
Hi, my name is Peggy Kopp, and I'm from New Freedom Borough. I'm not speaking tonight because I have concerns and questions, as did many other speakers tonight, regarding the agenda item 10.02, which is the proposal of the new board policy regarding school director visits. I'd like to express my concerns in advance of the first reading. My first question is, why is a new school board policy necessary at this time? Currently, board directors are encouraged to visit the schools in the district, but must operate under board policy 907, the same policy that volunteers in the district must follow as the types of the clearances that the board members typically have. They don't have the same level of clearances as teachers and staff. Under board policy 907, school board directors already have the right to visit the schools. They must just arrange their visit in advance with the building principal, sign in and out at the main office, and wear a badge while in the building. If a school director wishes to visit a classroom, they are already welcome to do so, but they must request the approval of the building principal and notify the teacher in advance of the visitation. This is the same policy that is used in all 15 York County school districts. If the goal of the director visits is to engage with staff and students and to observe in-person activities, and if you can achieve those goals already under the current policy, why is a new policy being proposed at this time? What is the new policy going to allow you to do that you can't do already? Number two, my second question is that, will this new board policy grant 24/7 access to all schools in all districts as suggested by Mr. Joe Wilson at the December 7th board meeting? The request caught my attention because it rings a lot of alarm bells for me. In fact, I was so concerned after the meeting that I reached out via email to all 15 York County school districts to see if this is a common policy in the area. I heard back from 11 of those districts, and of those 11, only one district, the Dallastown Area School District, offers badge access to the board directors with proper clearances. However, that access is only granted during operational hours. It's not 24/7 access. And even with that access, school board directors are expected to follow the protocol set forth in board policy 907. Building and classroom visits must be run through the principal, and board directors must sign in and out at the main office. Following a visit, the director must provide the full board with a verbal report of the visit. This seems appropriate. However, 24/7 access is a different ballgame and means that board directors would be able to access the school unattended both before and after school hours if they wanted. I'm curious as to why that access is even being proposed. A third question is do the board directors plan to use their visitation time to make unannounced and unsupervised visits to classroom? As a teacher, this is a frightening prospect and could easily be viewed as an intimidation tactic on the part of the board. While our board members have many professional skills, not one of them is a certified trained instructor. I question the value of a potentially unsupervised visit and fear the misunderstandings that could result during an observation by an untrained observer who does not understand the ins and outs of the daily classroom dynamic and has no deep knowledge of curriculum development or pedagogical best practices, especially when that observer is in a position of power in our district. Finally, I'm super concerned about the message that this new board policy could send to the teachers and to the students in the schools. By suggesting that a change in policy is needed, it appears that our board is suggesting that something is wrong, that for some reason there is now a need that did not exist previously for an increase in the oversight of in-person activities in our schools. At minimum, the desire for increased and potentially unsupervised visits borders on micromanagement and risks going beyond the scope of the director's responsibilities, which, by the way, is to make policy and not to administer the teachers. It says to the teachers that we do not trust you, that we think something is happening behind the scenes that we need to get in and uncover. Sowing the seeds of mistrust between the staff and the community and the board is exactly the opposite of what a school board director's mission should be, and it's definitely not on the list of 7 characteristics of a highly effective board director. I would definitely look elsewhere for a teaching position if I felt that my integrity as a teacher were being questioned. Given the distrust and the disrespect for public education in general that is expressed on the websites of 3 of the political PACs whose endorsement was sought by 5 of our new board members, I find myself sadly suspicious of the motives behind the new policy proposal happening tonight. And I'm fearful for the teachers and the students whose political, religious, and social beliefs do not fall in line with the rhetoric that I see on these sites. I hope that my concerns are unfounded and that the first reading of the proposal this evening and any discussion that follows will address and alleviate my concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to item 7, the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any discussion? Any nays or abstentions? That motion carries. Moving on to item 8, education, and I will turn the floor over to Mrs. Henkel.
All right, 8.01, we have the proposed district comprehensive plan 2024-2027. It is an action item. I'm going to go ahead and kick this to Dr. Hughes. Do you have a presentation, or are you just there for questions, or?
Open for questions, and also to let you know that when we had public comment, one of the things that we did add was to incorporate the annual review with the board. We want to make sure that this is a living, breathing plan, and we're looking at the data to be able to support and make changes as we need.
I move to approve the proposed district comprehensive plan 2024 to 2027 presented at the January board meeting and posted as required. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Do we have any board discussion and any questions for Dr. Hughes?
Just a quick comment that we really appreciate the additional detail we got the other evening, especially the retrospective on the previous plan, just so that we're making sure that we're moving in the right direction. So really appreciate, I know you and Dr. Ruppert worked hard on that.
Thank you as well.
Yeah, I'd also like to thank you for your passion and your diligence into the matter. It really comes forward in the presentation. It was refreshing to see your passion for the students and for education, and also for you, Dr. Bryson, and even doing a little bit of stand-in, but the passion that you have for our school was evident, and I really appreciated it in both of you. Thank you.
And to relay some of the conversations that I had with Dr. Hughes, I believe it was just one feedback point that you received about, but because she's such a professional and she knows what she's doing, that was baked into what they already had because it was a committee. All of the questions along the way, all the feedback along the way was being handled in real time. And so that's why it wasn't a surprise that there was only going to be one feedback or a few after the fact, because it was an evolving document and a moving document was happening at the same time. So well done with that as well. Alrighty, let's go. Are there any nays or abstentions? All right, that motion passes. On to 8.02, revisions to the 2024-2025 elementary school student handbook, Southern Middle School handbook, and Susquehannock High School student handbook. Dr. Bryson, are you handling that? It is just public.
Yeah, I'll just add to that quickly. You've got a series of handbooks and summary of the changes so that it'll draw you to what the proposed changes are throughout those, and then those will be up for approval then next month.
Okay. And those documents are for board member to digest. Moving on to 8.03, the 2024-2025 Elementary Digital Academy Student Handbook, the Secondary Digital Academy Handbook, the Elementary Digital Academy Student Contract, and the Secondary Digital Academy Student Contract. Again, that's also public. Dr. Bryson, anything more on that or the same? All right.
Same, yep.
Moving on to, and this is going to be Dr. Hughes again, 8.04, the 95 Phonics Core Program. I am excited to hear what you have to offer with this. This is where I believe you shine, so please take it away.
So we're very excited to, our teachers at Friendship Elementary School have been implementing the 95% and working with the other two buildings. And one of the things that we identified is that it really does a nice job at doing a foundation for phonemic awareness in our phonics program that blends very well, and will take the foundations program that we're currently using and allowing that to be laid on top of the 95%. So it really does fill all of the holes that we were finding in our foundations program by allowing us to do 95% as our core and then filling in pieces with foundations. We really went through a careful analysis of the program, and we had several teachers that were willing to come tonight to really talk about why they really felt that this program helped them to instruct on phonemic awareness and phonics at a different level, and how they've seen a lot more growth. So we're really excited to be able to bring this to our other two schools to be able to continue to see this progress and really collaborate together with this.
I move to approve the purchase of the 95 Phonics Core Program and accompanying instructional resources from 95% Group at a cost of $92,194 using ESSER grant funding. This is a reading intervention program to students in kindergarten through grades 3 at Friendship, Shrewsbury, and Southern Elementary Schools. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion by the board or questions?
I'm really excited to see the increased focus on phonics. It's a very proven very effective way to teach reading. So.
Any other questions? Any nays or abstentions? That motion carries. Next, we have 8.05, contract with Bradford Pearson to speak to members of the Susquehannock journalism students, Courier students, and AP US history classes. Dr. Bryson, did you have anything that you wanted to add with this one?
I really don't.
Okay.
Nope.
Alrighty. I move to approve a contract with Bradford Pearson to speak to members of the Susquehannock journalism students, Courier students, and AP US history classes at a cost of $625. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Alrighty. Any board discussion? Any questions? Alrighty. Any nays or abstentions? That motion carries. 8.06, PSSA testing schedule spring 2024. This is public information. Dr. Bryson, do you have anything to add with us?
Just it's a requirement for us to post, to make sure folks are aware.
How to do it.
We'll certainly get the information out as we get closer to the parents and community.
And our board directors, you have that link right there. 8.07, Stage 1 curriculum maps as district-wide master maps. This is a Kim Hughes thing.
So One of the things that we're looking at doing is making sure that all of our curriculum is updated and online over the next few years. And right now, we have 3 maps that we have brought forward this evening for approval. The third grade ELA. One of the things that you'll notice with this map, it's more detailed than some of the maps that we've had in the past. You'll be able to see this online. Parents and community will be able to pull them up and see all of our stage 1. But one of the reasons that we really are excited about this is that it really does put in a very systematic approach to our HMH program and really gives our teachers a very clear what we need to be doing in each step of the process. So this map, we're excited to see, we'll continue to have these for the next few. We also have, I believe, childcare on the agenda. I have quite a few that are coming in the next few. So we have the childcare, and one of the things that, this is our program that is for our high school students, where they're learning about teaching and instruction. So this map will help us to continue to move forward. Ms. DeLuca took a long time to really update the program that we have, and we're very excited in the partnership that she's having with even our science classes to get our students to be able to see those. And then our final map.
Art grades, K through 6.
Art K through 6, thank you. We have kindergarten through 6th grade art maps. Our teachers have been working very hard. This has been an ongoing project, and they have made sure that we have a cyclical amount of information so that each grade level, it builds on the skills every year. So as you look at the maps, you'll see some of the same information, but it gets deeper every single year. You'll see that also as we bring forward our physical education maps in the near future.
Is there any way we can show these? So I think.
Yes. So,
Well, I just.
you want to give me a minute?
There's just so much. There's just so much in here. It'd be great to share.
Yeah.
Read it all. Yeah.
Do you want us to move on to another one, table
you
this?
don't at mine,
Absolutely.
I mean,
Well, I think we have to,
this time,
we have to take the vote on this one.
Can we,
I just.
We've got a motion on the table. but-
Mr. Litz, can we table it and then move it to the next? Can we do that?
Yeah, we can go,
Like,
you
just
want to go
table
into
for the-
808?
Do we need
come
to
back?
table it? I mean, I think we've all seen these, so.
Yeah, I mean,
We can
we don't have to
pass
do
it,
that.
but still, it's still informed.
Yeah.
I could do a whole
We'll do it.
presentation on the new system.
Oh,
Looking forward to it.
Yeah,
I
great.
need that myself.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion on the table, we have a second.
No, we
Do we
don't
not?
have a motion or a second.
Oh.
Okay,
Now we-
sorry, thank you.
We need a motion.
I move to approve the following Stage 1 curriculum maps as district-wide master maps. 1, art grades K-6, 2, English languages ELA, grade 3, and 3, preschool lab 1 and 2. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
next time we should show them.
Right, there you go. That's a good idea.
There's the discussion.
So, yeah, I think next time, like, let's say it's phys ed, we could do a, while you're looking at phys ed, this is also EduPlanet that they will have access to.
We'll have, I think, 4 for next time, so.
Any nays or abstentions? That motion carries. Next, my favorite part, 8.08, novel adoption. I move to approve the following novels: Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, Project Gutenberg Literary Archive, grade 9, and The Bicentennial Man by Isaac Asimov, Orion Publishing Company, for grade 12. May I have a second? Second. Any discussion by the board or questions? I would actually like to take this time to do something different. The literature teacher in me demands that I do it. I just wanted to show some transparency for some of the curriculum that we have in our district and the robust, unbelievable vocabulary and story that come from both of these, but particularly Frankenstein.
I read through both of these, the novel Frankenstein and then the short story that's a part of a larger work by Isaac Asimov. And all of my children, they knew the rule was if they got in the car, they had to listen to Frankenstein. And that's just the way that it goes in the Henkel family. So Dr. Frankenstein, as a fallible man that had many ups and downs, and of course there's this discussion of who the real monster is in the story, he, even on his deathbed, was able to rouse some of the most stunning speeches. And to hear what our students are going to be able to digest in real time, I'm just going to read a paragraph so you guys can hear. But he was talking to all of the people that had gone on an expedition, and it was a captain that Victor Frankenstein was actually kind of stumping for and trying to rouse the rest of the ship to follow what the captain was saying. And so he dies like literally 2 hours after this speech. So, oh, that I have this kind of energy on my deathbed. What do you mean? What do you demand of your captain? Are you then so easily turned from your design? Did you not call this glorious expedition? And wherefore was it glorious? Not because the way was smooth and placid as a southern sea, but because it was full of dangers and terror. Because at every new incident, your fortitude was to be called forth and your courage exhibited. Because danger and death surrounded it. And these you were to brave and overcome. For this it was glorious. For this it was honorable undertaking. You were hereafter to be hailed as the benefactors of your species, your names adorned as belonging to brave men who encountered death for honor and the benefit of mankind. And now behold, with the first imagination of danger, or if you will, the first mighty and terrific trial of your courage, you shrink away and are content to be handed down as men who had not strength enough to endure cold and peril? And so, poor souls, they were chilly and returned to their warm firesides. Why, that requires not this preparation. You need not have come thus far and dragged your captain to shame of a defeat merely to prove yourselves cowards. Oh, be men, or be more than men. Be steady to your purposes and firm as a rock. This ice is not made of such stuff as your hearts may be. It is mutable and cannot withstand you if you say it shall not. Do not return to your families with the stigma of disgrace marked on your brows. Return as heroes who have fought and conquered and who know not what it is to turn their backs on the foe. My heavens, to write something like that. I am so unbelievably encouraged about what our teachers get to do. And I know that both with Frankenstein and with the Bicentennial Man, the debate that comes with that, it's oh so very engaging and just well done. Amazing curriculum. And so with that, I'm sorry I interrupted. We had a motion on the table, is that correct? Second. And we had a second. Got carried away with literature. All right, do we have any nays or abstentions? That motion carries. And that is all for education.
All right, moving on to item 9, finance and budget, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. 9.01 Treasurer's Report for February 2024. For the general fund concentration account, we started the month with $22,498,202.67. The balance at the end of the month is $18,901,304.18. This reflects kind of where we are in the year. This is where it gets drawn down a little bit closer to the end of the fiscal year. In the investment accounts, we started the month with $29,805,860.01, and ended the month at $30,131,493.27. The full document is there for you to review. Moving on to 9.02, the bills for payment. I'd like to motion that we approve the bills for payment. One quick note on this. This is, I think, the first run of the firefighter tax credit checks.
This should be all of the
This should be all of them?
Yep.
Okay. So that is what's in here this month. So, do I have a second?
Second.
Any conversation? Questions? Okay. Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. 9.03, exonerations and refunds. Unlike the last several months, we actually have some this month. I'd like to motion to approve the exonerations and refunds as listed in the attached document. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions? There are 6 total here, right, Sue? I wrote 6.
Looks like 6.
Just double checking.
Okay.
Yep, definitely 6.
Okay. Any questions? Nope. Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. 9.04, the tax collector report as of February 2024. This document is attached for your information. 9.05, the budget status report for February. The documents for the cafeteria fund as well as the general fund are attached. This is for your information. 9.06, budget transfers. I'd like to motion to approve the budget transfers as listed in the document. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions or, I had notes on this. Any questions or comments? Okay, these budget transfers do not affect the budget. They're around one-time expenses for snow removal and athletic equipment. So, any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. 9.07, the cafeteria report, that is attached there. And I do want to give a shout out to Whitson's for feeding us for the community leaders dinner. It was a great time, great food. The other thing I did want to call out from this is that over the last 4 years, we've gone from serving 23,000 breakfasts to over 103,000. So a lot of our students are taking good advantage of that. Okay. 9.08. This is update on the proposed 2024-2025 budget. For this, I'm going to hand it over to Sue.
So just quickly, Tuesday night, we had the budget presentation for the board. In that presentation, Mr. Carrington and I presented the plan that we're recommending for this year. It does not include a tax increase for next year. The revenues are flowing, we're getting more subsidy than we have before, and with the interest earnings and earned income tax being strong, we feel that we can balance the budget without a tax increase. So the next steps would be at the April 11th to approve a proposed budget with final approval of the budget in May. Any questions?
Any questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much. 9.09, awarding insurance brokerage services to Keller Brown. I would like to motion to award the insurance brokerage services to Keller Brown for 3 years with an option to renew for 2 additional years. The briefing, there's a briefing document attached. May I have a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments, discussion? No? Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. 9:10, I have no other items of business, so back to you, President Hinkle.
Thank you. Moving on to item 10, personnel and policy. Ms. Hall.
Item 10.01, second reading and approval of new and updated policies. As per our board policy review process, 20 policies will be presented this evening. 19 policies were distributed at the January 18th board meeting and reviewed at the Personnel and Policy meeting on February 15th, with the first read conducted at the school board meeting on February 15th. Tonight, we will conduct the second reading of these policies as part of the policy adoption process. And then they will be sent to PSBA for a final read-through as just a final check. One policy tonight under item 10.02 is introduced this evening for a first reading. So last month, I provided an overview of the purpose of policies, which is to guide the board administration, staff, students, parents, and the public. This month, I would like to provide a brief overview on the process of policy development. The first step is the board or administration identifies a need. Either a current policy can be revised or a new policy can be created to address that need. Some needs might be from PDE creating a law. It could be from a board or administrative request. It could be by a legal challenge, or it could be through an administrative assessment that the policy language needs to be updated. After that need is identified, information is gathered from various sources, including other districts, PSBA, and/or other laws or regulations. The second step is that a draft is created, usually from PSBA, as they have a policy-making part of what they do, or it could be in consultation with our school solicitor. It goes through a review and adoption process, including review by the solicitor, readings by the board, and the opportunity for input from stakeholders and public comment, and then final approval. Step 3, the policy is then implemented by the administration, including administrative regulations to ensure consistent implementation across our schools. Step 4, data and feedback is then collected by administration to determine if the policy is meeting the identified need and that that data is provided to the board. And step 5, the policy is evaluated by the board based on data and feedback to determine if policy should be amended. I think some of these steps outline some of the questions that were brought forth in how we do that and what kind of things that we look at. At this point, since we had reads at the prior meeting, I'm just going to highlight the 19 policies based on the reasons why they were amended. We had 2 policies that were amended at the request of a board member. One was on policy 006 with meetings, and this was updated to include the vice president and treasurer to cooperate in the agenda preparation with the board president admin team. There was also another request by a board member on policy 800, and this had to do with records management, and this was also amended by a board member to retain a permanent record of the district board minutes, any recorded videos of public board meetings, annual auditors' reports, financial reports, and to retain this by the district for a period of not less than 6 years. So those are 2 policies that were related to a request by a board member. There were 3 policies that were updated just to include administrative regulations as attachments. So there was no change to policy. We were just adding those ARs in. And then there were 2 policies that were updated just for policy language that just needed to be made more current. And that was policy 140.1 and policy 200. And then there were 3 policies. We had a lot this month. There were 3 policies that were updated based on recommendations from PSBA and from their policy guidance that they give us. And then the final piece is there were 8 policies that were updated, and really what happened is we had policy that wasn't necessarily amended, but it was merged together, 300, 400, and 500, all these sections related to administration, professional, and support employees, and so we just brought them together with one. So there were 8 policies that did that. And then there was 1 policy that was updated for a legal regulation, and that had to do with being consistent with submission of child abuse clearances. So just to give you a little perspective, we're on our second read. We've talked about these before, but I just wanted to give a summary of what those policies and what those changes were. So I make a motion to receive for second reading and approval the list of new or updated policies.
Second.
Do I have a second? Second, okay. Any discussion? Okay.
Thank you for the outline.
Thank you. Hearing none, any nays or abstentions? Okay, motion carries. All right. Item 10.02, this is a first reading of policy 012. So this policy deals with school director visits to schools. This is considered a first reading, and this tonight is for information and discussion. We are not voting on it tonight. We would be voting on that. We will discuss that if we would vote out that at the next meeting. So going back to the overview of policy development, I wanted to share how this particular policy is moving through the process. So first, it started with a request by a board member. Back in December, a board member requested consideration of a policy for school board director school visitation. The identified need was for the following purposes: to have engagement as part of our 5 schools certification as a high reliability school, level 1, safe, supportive, and collaborative school. It was requested to foster connection and support with building principals, teachers, instructional aides, and other staff. It was identified to help learn about the school's instructional models, which is now part of our HRS Level 2 effective teaching in every classroom. I want to point out that when these visitations occur, it is not for the purpose of evaluation or observation. It is for the purpose of learning and being able to participate in that Level 2 certification. And last, but it was in response to some parent and community feedback as part of the responsibility of board oversight. Prior to developing the draft proposal that I will highlight for you tonight, there was consultation with the Teacher Association leadership, with the assistant superintendent and the superintendent, and with our solicitor. Then it goes into a draft, and in consultation with the solicitor to look at all of our laws and make sure that we are in compliance with all those, and also to provide a common definition of school director visits, what that means and what we would be doing. The policy sets forth the expectations and requirements for school directors, individually or collectively, to participate in such visits. I'm just going to highlight what we have here. I think it will be enough just to be able to get the essence of what it is. So in terms of the authority, the board believes that the fulfillment of its governance role can be enhanced through school directors being able to visit district schools and/or non-educational facilities to directly observe district activities, educational programs, property conditions, or operations. This policy sets forth the expectations and requirements for school directors, individually or collectively, to participate in such visits. And there are 2 types of visits that are outlined in this policy. Scheduled board visits. This is commonly what has been done. And so this would be at the suggestion of the superintendent of schools or the board president's request. Board visits to school or non-educational facilities may be scheduled on predetermined dates and times to allow all school directors to participate in organized visits to observe instructional programs, the status of construction and renovation projects, property conditions, or to familiarize the board with other district program and operations. Advance notification of any scheduled visits shall be given to all school directors to provide them with a reasonable opportunity to plan to participate in those scheduled visits. The superintendent of schools or designee shall accompany the board on scheduled visits under this section, and the requirements for school director initiated visits as set forth below shall not apply. The second time of visitation is a school director initiated visit. A school director on his or her own initiative may visit a district school subject to all the parameters outlined under this section. School director initiated school visits may be for the purpose of attending scheduled school events such as assemblies, concerts, field days, or classroom celebrations, or to observe school-wide conditions, educational programs, or other activities that take place during the typical school day. A school director is strongly encouraged, but not required, to coordinate in advance with the school principal before initiating a visit to the school. The parameters to be considered for these visits include eligibility. A school director must have completed the child abuse clearance and criminal background checks required of volunteers under Policy 916, confirm no prohibitions exist against volunteer service, and have those documents on file with the Human Resources Officer prior to initiating any school visits under this section. Number 2, during each school visit, the school director must enter and exit the school through its main entrance, register at the office where he or she will sign out, provide the reason for the visit, and receive any necessary instructions. Number 3, a school director is required to wear a district-issued identification badge throughout the entirety of the school visit. Number 4, a school director, God bless you, shall be limited to 2 director-initiated school visits each week, and no director-initiated school visit shall be longer than 1/2 a school day. So those are the eligibility requirements. Guidelines, interactions with staff and student during visits. A school director may engage in polite interactions with staff and students during director-initiated school visits. A school director shall abide by all board policies while participating in director-initiated school visits. A school director may not interfere or otherwise disrupt classroom routines, educational programs, or the daily school schedule during a visit. The superintendent of schools or school principal may ask a school director to leave the school if his or her conduct is disruptive in the educational environment or violates the board policy. And then there's just a couple little situations of when and where to visit. So visits will not be done outside of normal school operations. No visit will take place during a time when state assessments or other standardized tests are being administered. There are no visits to private spaces unless accompanied by a building principal and these spaces are empty. A school director shall not be allowed to bring another individual with him or her while on a school visit. A school director shall not visit non-educational facilities without prior consultation with the superintendent of schools. And any failure to comply with the above procedures could result in temporary limitation on future school director-initiated school visits as determined by the board. I don't know, Mr. Litz or Mr. Wilson, if there's anything that you wanted to add to that.
It's okay to say about the non-educational thing, facilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one question that Mr. Wilson did ask me since I drafted it, I used the term non-educational facilities. Mr. Wilson asked a question about defining that in the policy, and I said that's fine. The intent on putting a potential limitation without, some other administrator present is, there are some safety-sensitive facilities. The anecdote I'd share is, I think we had a situation in the district where I had someone innocently visiting something, a staff member sees someone on school grounds, reported as an intruder, and it was just a big misunderstanding. So to avoid those types of things or not to unwittingly get into some facility issue, I agree with Mr. Wilson. We can define what those non-educational facilities are, and I just think it's a good idea to have someone with them. So.
You don't want us going into the boiler room and leaving it unlocked.
Yeah, leave it unlocked or unwittingly touch something and something like that. So that was the one comment I shared with Mr. Wilson, and I said, yeah, we can add something on the next round of revisions. But I'll be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any questions. Yes, Jim.
The background investigations didn't say anything about who's responsible to pay for those.
The intent of that would be to have board members that wish to participate to go through the same background checks that volunteers go through.
But who pays for it?
Well, volunteer background checks are free of charge. You can get the criminal background check from the Department of Public Welfare.
An IdenGo is like $20.
Yeah, but so in my mind, if someone wants to participate, they should assume the cost for that. But it would go through the same volunteer checks. Sue and her staff look at that, see if there's prohibited offenses, and clears people, and then we keep those on file. So it would be the same process, volunteers.
My only comment is, one, I don't think it needs changed because obviously we've never been denied access to the school if we've asked the superintendent that we can come. But two, I don't think it should say that it's not required to talk to the principal before coming. I think we should have to let the principal know that we are coming, if we're coming.
So
it should be.
Yeah, one reason that I prefer not to require that is if I want to schedule, I'm not going to walk into a teacher's class without the teacher knowing about it. If I want to schedule lunch with a teacher, I want to be able to come in, just write down teacher visit, and that nobody has to know, other than that teacher, that teacher can speak candidly to me, and that teacher's boss doesn't necessarily know that they did, because they may have something that they want to inform us of in our oversight role, that they don't necessarily want to raise. It's common thing to be able to raise issues not only with your manager, but with other avenues in case you are uncomfortable raising the issue with your manager.
Correct, but they also could just contact you if they have issues
Sure.
without the principal knowing. But I strongly suggest that we contact the principal before we go in, no matter what. I mean, it won't matter anyway, so.
Nathan, what you just described sounds like what a supervisor would do.
Yeah.
And one of the first things that the PSBA talks about, duties of school board members, is not to become micromanagers.
That's not become a micromanager. It's to hear a teacher's concerns directly. I'd like to be able to hear teacher concerns directly, as well as through the chain.
Why can't the teacher call you in the evening?
They can, but if I want to visit them at the school and they don't necessarily, and if the teacher doesn't want it to be known exactly that I'm coming in or what I'm coming to talk to them about, obviously someone might see it, but it would be nice to have the freedom to go and just visit that teacher if the teacher wants to talk to me directly. I'm not going to do that unless the teacher wants it.
You don't realize the impact you're going to have on a lot of the other teachers, because they're going to know you're there.
That they're going to know what? That I'm speaking to one of the teachers?
Absolutely.
Individually.
Absolutely.
At that teacher's, with that teacher's consent and with that teacher wanting to meet with me. Because
in the school. You're in the school building.
Yes.
You don't think the word's going to spread that you were there and you were talking to so-and-so? I just don't think that's what.
It's not going to be a secret.
School board, it's not going to be a secret.
No, it's not going to be a secret.
And I just don't
appreciate that. But we've had comment from our community, now in multiple meetings, making the assertion that what we are seeing in data does not match what they are experiencing in our school.
Does not fully reflect.
So that may not matter to you, Jim, but that really matters to me. And if there is a disparagement, one way that I would be able to see whether there is or is not a disparagement in that is by being in the school and observing and listening. Maybe not interacting in any way, shape, or form, but being in the school and listening to the interactions between students, being,
That is
in the
not what
cafeteria.
he described.
But there are many, there's not necessarily only one reason. Being able to observe.
There can be multiple reasons.
Yeah, being able to observe
But that's
the changing of classes in the hallway and what
That's
sorts
like
of things are
investigation
occurring.
also, though, because you're like going to investigate to make sure that everything's going well in the school.
It's not to investigate any specific incident.
But it is. I mean, if you're going there with an agenda to see, I've heard word that this is happening at the school, so now I'm going. Like, I hate
Is it an
this.
agenda when we have, moms standing here, pouring out their hearts to listen to what they say and then try to juxtapose that to our own data and then go in there and just listen and see and observe on the behalf of these moms that are obviously hurting for their students.
Okay, but why does it have to be hid from the principal? Why do you have to come unannounced? Why not say to the principal, hey, I'm coming.
Well, part of it is
I'm coming to
because-
meet with the teacher, it doesn't matter, because they're going to know you met with that teacher, because word's going to spread. It doesn't matter. Like, you can't hide that. But, I mean, all you have to do is just send an email to the principal and say, hey, I'm coming today. I mean, like, I don't understand why that would be hidden unless you are going for an agenda. So, like, that's why I don't understand why we even need to add this, but it is.
So how would it be, how does it indicate an agenda versus coming into the school versus emailing before you get there? How does that indicate that there's an agenda in play?
Well, I mean, you're coming into the school for a reason. I mean, you're not just coming to observe. You know that.
Well,
No,
no, we're coming to observe. That's the point.
Please don't disparage my comment.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
In my
it's-
comment that I would like to observe.
Yeah.
But why can't you observe with
The
letting them
interactions of
know?
students
I don't
between one
understand
another,
that.
the respect of students between one another, I would like to observe that.
Right,
See
but
that.
why can't you observe by just saying, hey, I'm coming, and then go observe?
Well, the policy says you can.
Yes, it says we can.
Right, but I'm saying you should let the principal know you're coming. I think they should know. I don't think it should be a surprise visit, because that's just not right. Like, do you want your CFO doing a surprise visit on your job? No. Like, I mean, and we're not a CFO, but I don't think that we need to surprise anyone. I think it should be, whether we're not talking to the superintendent and scheduling a visit, fine. Just send an email to the principal saying, hey, we're going into the school. And I don't understand why that's a problem, to let them know.
I hear what you're saying, Mrs. Doberman, and I think that you are rightly and accurately showing the tension that we have. I mean, that is a concern, is it not? And I think that the board right now is between a rock and a hard place. We have, and I hope everybody understands, this is not accusatory in any way, shape, or form. I'm simply reflecting comments that we've heard. These are not my personal opinions. But we're hearing things like from public commenters that, quote, the administration is hiding things and that students are experiencing all sorts of bullying, and that the data that we as a board are getting is not reflective of reality in the district. And so that would be all right. Well, and them telling us that we don't know what it's like to be in the buildings. You're right, we don't. And then we also have, and this is something that has been unsaid thus far, teachers who have come to us, and some who have left the district, but some who have not, who have said, as board directors, we don't know what they go through. We don't understand what they have to deal with. To which I have to say, you're right, I don't. And it's not, I can understand how it could be misconstrued, especially in the political climate that we find ourselves in, that it's monitoring the teachers. It's not. It's to come alongside and help. We have no idea what they're dealing with.
I'm not
And I know that was not your.
I'm not against that. I'm against the surprise visit part. That's what I'm against. That's what I'm asking to change in here. That's all I'm asking to change, even though I don't think the whole thing needs to be done. But if it has to be done, because the vote's not going to go my way, I think it should be amended to say that we must talk to the principal at least. That's all. That's all I'm asking.
I also like to add, if there are staff members that want to reach out to a board member but feel that they can't for whatever reason, that a third-party survey might be a good idea, at the end of the school year, just to see how things are going. How are things going with discipline? How are you feeling supported in the classroom? Those kinds of things that when we do have some of those conversations with staff that wants to share, those concerns are raised. So that would be another way to get that feedback if you want to have that, in a manner that isn't making a staff member feel uncomfortable or, requiring anything that would seem like it is hidden, because it's really not. We're here to represent everyone in our constituency and be available listening ears for staff and students. So those are my thoughts.
Well, I have to agree with Liz. I don't see any reason to have a separate policy. If you want to come in, talk to Dr. Bryson, get his permission, and arrange to do what you want to do. My question is, what background do you have to do what you want to do?
I will say we were elected.
Yeah, that's
not what I'm talking about.
Sure.
I
And-
made a very clear distinction that when we go into those rooms, we are not in there we are there to observe. We are not looking to be able to evaluate or provide any feedback on that. Our second, in our high reliability schools, it's all about effective teaching instruction. When I sat on the comprehensive plan committee, it was very helpful to be able to have some insight in just visits that I've done as a parent and as a board member to see what goes on in the classroom, because I could relate to the content that was being discussed. I could contribute fully as a board member because of that experience of being able to be in the classroom and being able to see things. It's just my experience. You don't have to agree with me. It's okay. It's just my experience I'm sharing.
But
And
you don't think your presence in that classroom disrupted what was going on in the classroom?
When I went in as a parent,
Absolutely.
I was invited in as a parent.
Well, I have to say as well, if I can add,
But
that
you're
as a
not going in
parent,
as a parent when
But-
you're doing what,
there are so many other things that we do, at least I know for myself, volunteering for junior achievement or other things that happen within the district that are a delight. Every time I've come in, it's always been a welcome by staff, and students, and it's been a wonderful experience. It's never been disrupting in any way. So I just want to share that, because as a volunteer throughout, regularly, the experience is not a disruption. It is always a welcome.
that's not what we're talking about.
I understand that, but you're sharing that we would be disrupting if we're going in to volunteer or what have you, and
Doing
that's not.
what you want to do, it's going to be disruptive.
Mr. Holly,
Just
you're...
walking down the hall and seeing the change of classes and hearing if there are disruptions happening in one of the classes that has the door open. I mean, honestly, I'll say that classroom disruptions have driven our family's educational decisions, and I know that there's at least one other person who spoke today where that sort of thing drove theirs, and it's a concern. And I would like to be able to speak to it from a place of knowledge. I'd like to be able to speak to it from a place of having seen, okay, this is what they're talking about.
Look, at the end of the day, we've seen a lot of data. We've seen our proficiency data go downward. We just got that presentation the other night. We see our climate survey, that's our staff. That's going downhill over the last 5-6 years. We've seen our disciplinary information. We're actually tracking it now, but we are seeing that it's going in, higher numbers.
Well,
There's something going on,
micromanaging
Jim,
will help out.
and you don't get to resolve anything if you just, stay on the outside. We do want to partner with teachers. We've been told, well, you need to establish a relationship with teachers. Well, you can't really go in and visit with the teachers.
To me, micromanaging would be stepping in and trying to solve the situations that we observe. This is simply to get an understanding that goes beyond data.
Yep.
Because beyond that data are real children.
Yeah.
And as we hear from moms, real sons, real daughters, real people, and it will help us to be able to feel the humanity of the data and what's going on in our school, not just sit at a table and crunch numbers.
Right, and we also heard from real people that they didn't want you in the schools. But, whatever.
I'm sorry, what?
Well,
I'm just saying, you're
I
talking about
understand
real
that.
people, but I'm talking about the other real people. It's...
I do understand that, but I personally listen to the moms who are talking about their children being discriminated against, and I take that to heart. And it is strange to me that the desire to really have a real understanding of that flies in the face of those that also really want to have an understanding of that. However, people are dichotomous, they can have their views and their opinions just the same as I can, and that's fine. But I do want to understand the disparagement between the two and be able to see the level of discord and respect, or i.e. disrespect, between our kids. And just be a fly on the wall. You know, I don't think the children are going to know or care if I'm a school board member here, but I do care about them and about their interactions, and the fact that I want them to leave this district, every student, all of our students, to be able to leave the district feeling like they loved their time at Susquehanna and Southern, you know, all the way through. So that is a desire of mine, and a real reason why I want to be able to be an observer inside of the school.
And I understand what you're saying, but you will not be a fly on the wall. You will be a swarm of bees or something that, as you're walking down that hall, every teacher is going to look out and go, oh shit, a board's member's here, sorry. But they're just going to be like, crap, they're here, like let's, you know, like prim and proper kids, you know, and we don't want anything to look bad.
Does that happen when a principal walks down the hall?
Probably, but I don't know.
But the principal needs to be there
Yes.
to perform
We hired
their
them.
duties.
We hired them
Yeah,
to do that.
Right, and people
We
elect
didn't-
us to oversee.
To oversee.
Yeah.
Not to go in.
Part of
to
which
over.
is to understand what's happening.
We're that umbrella. We're not,
And I think this policy would not support the idea of us actually engaging with an issue that we see. It's simply to understand what's happening.
okay, then make it right and email the principal at the beginning. That's all I'm saying. Because it sounds shady that we're doing spot checks and surprising the school and coming in.
But that's subjective. It sounds shady to you. It doesn't sound shady. I mean, it all depends. I mean, I'm just saying this like honestly. It
Everything's
depends on what
subjective.
your intent is, right? Like you're looking at it through the lens of seeing shady. I'm looking at it through the lens of we have a lot of new board members, and it would be wonderful to be able to get into the schools to foster that collaboration and to break down any assumptions of what a board is or what a board isn't. So again, you're not wrong, I'm not wrong, but
Right.
it's our mindset,
But
but
if
we
you're
can't take that
fostering,
mindset
why
and
surprise them?
But, I mean, again, you're calling it surprise. I don't call it a surprise.
It is. If you're just showing up at the front desk, it's a surprise. Hello, I'm here. True. Very true.
There is a difference between a volunteer and there is a difference between a board member who is elected for citizen oversight into, it's very different. At the end of the day, all of us, even if we don't agree on this, we are accountable for what happens in this school district. At the end of the day, we are the ones that were voted in to be accountable. So it is different. Yes, we are volunteers. We do not take pay for this, but we are a different level of volunteer in that we were elected in as opposed to somebody going in and reading in a classroom. Those people are not accountable for our district. We are.
Well said, Sam.
Thank you.
Part of this is to develop those relationships more in a more direct way. However, this was just the first reading. Do we have any further discussion on this for now? I mean, we can always discuss further at the next meeting. So nothing's happening right now. No, public comment is done.
Sue, just in terms of moving this forward, so we would put this, how would we put this on for April? Is that what we're discussing that we would do? Because we talked about that, like, is that assumed that we just discuss this as second read in April?
That would be up to the board, per board policy. You have to have a first read, and then it has to be on every other month until it's approved. So you could discuss it again in April, you could vote for it in April for the policy, it's up to the board.
Okay.
And I would like to thank Mr. Wilson for working with Dr. Bryson and our solicitor to try to account for all the different concerns from different perspectives on this. Ultimately, it was Jeff that crafted the policy by taking all of that input, and that was to attempt to ensure that the legal issues were well considered by actually having him draft the language of the policy, whereas with some other policies, we've drafted it and had him review. We took special care with this policy. We actually have been in discussions, I've discussed with Dr. Bryson. I know Joe's had a lot of discussions with Dr. Bryson and Mr. Litz about this, and it's been so much that it fell behind all other policies in the policy adoption schedule. So we are taking it, we are considering it carefully and have been.
Well,
excuse me, you don't get to call out from the audience. Please.
While we have been discussing, I think I feel obligated to speak for, and while I can't speak for every staff member, I don't want to sit and think that this is good or bad for our teaching staff so much as what I will say is there are concerns, and I think there will be concerns. And I heard a little bit about what their opinion was or our ability to survey, and that the climate and culture is down. We survey staff. I'm not sure what particular piece of data, Joe, within that climate and culture is down. We can certainly take a closer look at that. But I would suggest either the board may consider asking your staff whether they feel comfortable with board members coming into the buildings without prior knowledge of their direct supervisor. I can tell you in majority of staff are extremely comfortable with their principal walking down the hallway. If I walk down the hallway, it's a little less comfortable. And I've been here 29 years. And I'm in JA and helping the volunteering and trying to get out as much as I possibly can. I'm still the superintendent. Not Bob Bryson, the superintendent, Bryson. And so I would just caution, in respect of everybody's opinion, this will impact the staff of this district, and it may be worthy to get feedback from them prior to official approval. And that may be as much as also hearing from Mr. Newland at some point as the association president. We don't need the details tonight, but I think it's worthy of our efforts to potentially get their opinions too.
So it was said earlier that teacher representation was brought into this, is that correct? And who did you work with?
Chris Newland, Jen Collins, we've had several conversations.
So you have talked with Mr.
Yes.
Newland about it?
And I believe, Nathan, you did as well?
Yeah. That wasn't the highlight of our discussion. We discussed a number of topics, but I believe this was among them.
Just out of curiosity, I was not a part of those discussions. Did they directly say they supported the board members having open access and being able to come and go as they chose? Or I'm paraphrasing the exact words, but.
Well, I mean, the idea of more collaboration between the school board and teachers as employees of our district, as literally our most valuable resource, was supported on both sides of that conversation. So, and that was literally the direction that my intent, my initial request, my continued efforts on this are solely to make sure that we have really great teachers. Let's keep them. Let's figure out what they're seeing. Let's be more of a partnership than they have with prior boards. Because that's, look, we saw almost half of our teachers and staff leaving in the last 4 years. It's not an accident. I want to keep them. I want to have that relationship, and because great teachers means we're getting great education for us, all the students of our district.
So Mrs. Hall brought up the concept of doing a teacher survey. I believe you said third party teacher survey. I would think that that would be an interesting component to put into if we were to discuss doing a teacher survey. An interesting component to put into that so that the teachers, sort of individually, but then as a whole in the data, would be able to talk about, express their opinions on the situation, and obviously many other things, through that. But to be able to get a good litmus test on what our teachers think. Because, although I have had teachers come to me and talk to me about things, I have. Multiple times. I've lived in the district my whole life. I know a lot of people. People are going to come up and talk to you. This would be maybe a much broader approach at getting the opinions of those teachers, and on many, many issues, but this could also be one of the issues that we could get their perspective on.
I agree, and to highlight something that Mr. Holly said, I think that you're absolutely right, that there are some teachers that never would have a sit-down in a school. I think that the reality of the climate that we're in, that probably wouldn't happen, and so that gives the secondary option of being able to have their feedback in a way that isn't quite so. But it's, again, the intention of the policy, at least from my standpoint, is not to, it was brought to my attention that, this policy is only here because we want to survey libraries. We can survey libraries now. The catalog for books is online. I don't have to go into a school to know what books are in our library. We might see posters on walls. I see posters on walls now. That's not what this policy is about. That we want to target students, that we don't want to target teachers. I see students now. I see teachers now. That's not what this is about. It really is to aid teachers. It's not to scrutinize. It's not to deliver any advice at all. It's to just be able to aid them and to hear them and to listen to them. It's not for lesson plans. They don't need us for that. It's really just to be able to experience the culture and climate of our schools. And when we're hearing public comments say that we don't know what it's like, that things are happening in our district that we have no idea, you're right, we don't. That's all this is.
Well, and there's other avenues too, in addition, like a fall fun night, everyone has their own tables, right? The board could come in and we could do a table, right? And give out candy to the little ones and just, get out there and get to know the staff a little bit better through evening activities and things too, So there are things that we can enjoy with the staff and the students in the
The
community.
other policy never told us we couldn't do that.
Right,
I mean,
it's just a thought,
it doesn't
it's
need
just
to
an
be
idea.
amended, that's what I'm saying.
I understand.
Everything you just described can be done with the policies we have.
Yeah.
Except being able to just walk through and observe what's going on without anyone, taking us a particular way, just being able to walk through a hall and hear what's happening classroom to classroom. Is the environment disruptive? Are the children learning well? The classroom that I went into with the with the, where I read to them. It was a very young classroom. They were extremely well behaved. But on certain parent visitation days, when I came before I was a board member, I saw some things that really made it difficult for me to continue to send my kids to that particular school at that time. And ultimately we didn't. And so we know that people sometimes pull out for that reason. And so that's the thing that I want to see what does that look like? When we're talking about a disruptive classroom, what does that mean? And because as teachers are sometimes suffering under that, but we don't get the information we need to really understand what they're experiencing.
So, in closing, we have heard a lot, and so we'll come back in April and go through our second reading.
But we do a survey before that or not?
I mean,
the teacher survey, the independent teacher
Oh,
survey?
everybody's survey, not just teachers. Paraprofessionals, everybody.
So staff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that needs to be done before we would move forward with this.
I'm not opposed to it.
Do we need an item on the next agenda for that, or is that how it needs to be done, or can you just?
Oh, we can't vote on anything tonight.
No, yeah, I'm just saying, do we need, for a survey like that, do we have to vote on that, or is that something we can just say, hey, administration?
I don't have a problem if you trust the administration to put together a survey, talk with the associations about it, and then sharing it with you guys if you're comfortable with that. If you prefer to approve something, then put it on the agenda next month.
All right. Let's see during new business if anyone wants to put that on the agenda for next month.
What are we putting on the agenda?
The board approving a survey. That would be if we want to have more input, I suppose, into the content of the survey.
So then that way we would be waiting on that policy for a second read. That would not appear because.
I mean, we can read it as many times as we want. We can pass it. We can take as long as we need.
We can't pass it if we're going to do a survey.
Right. So I would say probably if there's general support for doing a
So why would we do
survey,
the survey?
we probably would not pass the policy until the survey was done. The only question is, if we want the board to have input into the content of the survey, then we may need to wait we may need to put the survey on the next board meeting, which would that would potentially delay adopting this policy. So we can discuss that during new business.
I didn't know if we could just put out a survey, or we really have to motion on that?
I mean,
That's what I'm asking. I'm asking out of stupidity.
Well, what Mr. Litz said was, if we trust the administration, but it's also, we can't deliberate over the contents of that survey outside of a public meeting. So I can say, Dr. Bryson, could you put together a survey, and here's what is important to me, and we could each send what's important to us and have him collate it all, and in that case, we can get it done faster. But if anybody has concerns about what exactly the survey looks like, so I'm not taking a position on it. Mr. Litz gave us the options, and I'm not taking a position.
No, I'm just asking.
One way or the other on it.
Just
I'm
asking.
saying during new business, we can discuss whether we want to put that on the next, or if we want to just hand it to Dr. Bryson, and we all just send him anything we'd like him to include in the survey.
Okay.
So let's leave that for new business. All right.
Moving on. 10.03, Memorandum of Understanding with the Southern New York Educational Support Personnel Association and Ms. Patricia McGee. The recommended action for this is, the public comment, the Board of Education to consider approval of a Memorandum of Understanding with the Southern New York Educational Support Personnel Association and Mrs. Patricia McGee concerning a temporary assignment. And just the background on this is that Ms. McGee has been doing a different part of her job, and so this is an MOU to be able to compensate her for doing that. It's outside of her scope of responsibility. So I make a motion to approve a memorandum of understanding with the Southern New York Educational Support Personnel Association, and Ms. Patricia McGee concerning a temporary assignment. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, any nays or abstentions? Okay, motion carries. And item 10.04, a memorandum of understanding with the Southern York Education Association. The Board of Education to consider approval of a memorandum of understanding with the Southern York Education Association concerning additional compensation for providing additional services and case management coverage for the balance of 2023-2024 school year. And again, the background on this is that we have a teacher that is providing these additional services outside of the scope, and the memorandum of understanding is to be able to compensate for those services. I make a motion to approve a memorandum of understanding with the Southern York Education Association concerning additional compensation for providing additional services, case management coverage for the balance of the 2023-2024 school year. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, any nays or abstentions? Okay, motion carries. And item 10.05, other items of business, I have none, and that concludes my report, Mr. President Hinkle.
I would like to add the survey to the agenda next month.
Are we going to do that under here in new business?
Yeah, sorry. I mean, we can do it under other items of business for this. That's fine. So you do want to include a survey on the.
I mean, I totally trust Dr. Bryson, but I mean, if we have to look at it and discuss it, then put it on the next agenda.
I mean, can we just get a temperature of the board? Is the board generally amenable to the idea of just sending our any concerns we have, any input we have into what that survey would look like? First of all, is everybody good with having Dr. Bryson do a survey?
I would prefer the survey to be third party.
Third party. Well,
So that the teachers can feel no level of they can feel free to say whatever they want to say.
and specifically about building access, you'd like a third party survey on that?
I would like to be included in it.
Included
Not
in it.
necessarily encompassing that.
Oh, but included in a third party survey.
More of a climate survey conducted by a third party with that component added into it.
Okay, so that will probably further delay adopting this policy.
Right. Mr. Hall, if I could just add to that, I think the natural scope of a survey is at the end of the school year. So then that would, if we're going to add to that third-party survey for discipline or whatever we wanted to ask, you're wanting to add this in, so it's not going to be two separate surveys. You want it to be all combined into one, is what you're trying to do?
I would. I understand this may create delay. I do understand that. I do think if we have a real desire to observe in the school, we do have a mechanism we can work inside of at the moment. But I would really like to see a climate survey for the school. And I'm completely acceptable, Mrs. Doberman, to include others beyond teachers. That's completely accept that. I think that's fine. It may add to the cost of it. However, I think it's very beneficial to us to be able to have that. It's going to be more of a raw data situation in the end. It's going to be a raw data situation. However, it will give us a good indication of where our staff is at, and maybe it will give us some indication to some of our staffing woes. Maybe it won't. But I do think it's worth having a better understanding of it as a board. And I do think that as my desire to be an asset to our teachers and an asset to our students, an asset to our administration, I think having a better understanding of it of all of that will only help us to have a better policy in the end. And if that means that this policy is essentially tabled until the beginning of school next year, I'm willing to accept that, to have ultimately my desire is to have a better understanding. And although that's not taking the consideration of the students in, it's delaying time on seeing and understanding the climate of our students. And that is what it's effectively doing. It's delaying it for our students. I do agree with Joe that our teachers are our greatest asset. And I think having a solid and clear understanding of what they think will only help us to be more effective board members and for this policy to be more effective in the long term.
So the suggestion then would be to whether we can, as soon as we can, because I guess there are issues to consider, who would be the third party and is there a cost and those sorts of things. So I suppose I'll just get a temperature from the board. Is there any opposition on the board to that course of action?
No, could we redo the survey that we did with the LIU?
So, yeah, I'm going to add, so we do a multitude of surveys under level 1 for HRS, which is about safe, supportive, collaborative. We have those results from last year, which we can certainly provide, but we can update to some extent this year. And many of the parents may have remembered getting those surveys as parents as well, an abbreviated version. That being said, it's not necessarily third party. The survey itself is third party. We still implement it. But that data, for instance, our staff are the ones who analyze it. So there's a safety to that, in that it's not superintendent analyzing data and saying, this is what's wrong. It's they're figuring out what could be done better, and that's a whole different feel. We want to continue to do that data. It's on an abbreviated version each year, so you're not doing a 6-page survey. So I think we need to investigate it a little bit, just because you can go in a multitude of directions with this, and I think for this particular topic, you're looking at maybe a couple questions is probably going to garner the information that you're looking for. And that can be done fairly quickly. But let's not lose sight of the culture climate. We are doing those, and certainly can share the kind of data that we have in those areas that you can get a better look. As Joe had talked about, having 3-4 years of data. We've been doing climate culture surveys for over 10 years now. And so that gives you a feel.
And maybe we could compare that survey questions, maybe not the data, but the approach of that survey, or with what LIU 13 did during the superintendent search. And maybe it could be a blend of the two, and then of course adding in some of these concerns of what we're discussing right now.
Yeah. Although the IU 13, that's several years old now, so
True.
If you're wanting to compare to something like that, we
I don't
might
mean
need
the data.
a refresh. Oh yeah, so the approach, the approach. So do we have those available, the IU 13, the surveys that they circulated at that time?
IU 12, yeah, we'll take a look at what we have.
Okay.
I mean, we certainly didn't get rid of it, but yeah. And they're certainly willing. They do the climate, I mean, they utilize pretty much the same climate culture survey we were using, because it's a state generated, and they've done all the work to normalize it, et cetera. So, however, it's not very, you can't manipulate it with whatever questions you want to throw on it. So it's not going to fit the bill for this particular topic. But we can have conversations with them at least to see.
Yeah, so you can look, bring back a lot of what we're currently doing with HRS, and then I'll look into some third-party options for,
Marshall's does polling.
hmm?
Franklin and Marshall does polling too. I just had a district.
Franklin Marshall?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and Mr. Hall, the more I think about it, I really don't think that there is a delay, because you could just right now, right? You could reach out to any principal and say, hey, you know, I've got a free couple hours tomorrow. I wonder if I could come in and just observe, you know. And that wouldn't be a problem, I don't think.
I think you have to clear it through the superintendent right now. I think that's still the policy that's in place right now. And I mean,
So if the concern right now is solely that the building principal ought to be informed, we could, because we can always pass a policy and then pass a further amended policy down the road, we could pass a version of this that, since I believe, Ms. Dauber, your only objection was that to that particular element.
well, my objection is the
Only
whole
strong objection.
change.
So we could reach out only to the building principal and
Yeah, it's
we wouldn't need
definitely
to-
for the whole change. I mean, like, are the teachers comfortable with having us come in just like whenever we want? And are they comfortable? I would like a survey before we.
Okay, all right, so
process.
so your objection is more than just
absolutely.
the
Some of
well,
us don't have that kind of flexibility. I know I work 40 hours a week, right, during the school hours. So for me, I like to plan. I like to know what I'm doing ahead of time. And, you know, I certainly don't have any opposition to letting anyone know whatever is going on. You know, I've reached out before and said, hey, I've got a couple hours. Can I come in and help? And the principal has been like, sure, you know, let me see what I've got, you know. So it's always a welcoming.
the current policy doesn't prevent any ability to gather information on the school environment. It simply makes certain types of information gathering more difficult or even impossible.
So today, Food Service Committee, the 4 individuals on the Food Service Committee visited a school, multiple schools today, to observe what was going on in their lunch programs. We came in specifically and intentionally unannounced because we wanted to have a real perspective of the day-to-day of what was going on. I do not feel that anyone felt like that was an imposition because we showed up there and they had no idea we were coming. And a little bit of irony in it, that they were very well connected in their communication, and when we arrived at the second location, they knew we were coming. So that was a little humorous to see their efficiency internally. Also, the area regional manager, who I think said he has 18 schools that he goes into, and made the comment that he had in the center console of his vehicle badge on top of badge on top of badge, that he would have to dig out the right one because he was able to walk up to the door of the school and swipe his badge and walk in. And I think there's a little bit of irony in all of the time that we have spent when this individual he's not a school employee. He's a manager, higher level manager of an institution that we hire, and we intentionally showed up without them knowing we were coming because we wanted to get a good feel for what it was really like for the students in a non-censored environment. And I feel like a lot of what we're asking for resonates with all of the things that we did today as a Food Service Committee for our kids. So I'm not against a survey in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I think it's a good idea. But I think that we did today what we are talking about. And It was the proper way to do that, the proper way to observe them. And it's anecdotal evidence, I understand that, but it is how we as a district conducted ourselves in this process.
So you went to, because I did not go on the food service.
I didn't know if we wanted to say where we went.
No, that's okay, we will. In the district you went, or district, was there a representative, though, from that district that was with you? So
We let them know we were coming.
So I
We
feel
didn't
like.
let the staff know.
Right. The food service staff. Correct. You're just walking through, and I feel like for what we're talking about, if the three of us are walking together, I don't send notification out to the building that there's board members in the building. It will get out, as you just indicated, but there's a comfort level for folks knowing my face, Sue's face, Len's face, that you're supposed to be there because they know a face with the group. That's all. So that's, I think, the piece of it is, it's not that we need to announce it to the world. It's more, can one of us just go to provide context or to provide a familiar face for the staff? And because many don't know who you are, just because they're not necessarily watching the board meetings. And relieve some of that anxiety that they may have that we spoke of when we're walking down the hallway or whatever it may be. And some of you have been in with me at times, and I don't tell the cafeteria we're coming in to grab something to eat, or I don't, and if you want to see a music performance, great, so I wanted to touch on that because I'm thinking to myself, now somebody from that district was with, and because of some of the same concerns that I think run through I don't want anybody to accuse somebody of, this or that or the other thing. And if you have questions, we want to be able to provide some context that if we know, and we might not know. So anyway.
All right, so if we're leaving other items of business, I think you've got a few things to look into. I've got a few things looked into in terms of third parties. Is there anything else that we're missing there?
I don't think so.
All right, item 11. Mr. Hall, take it away.
Okay, Buildings and Grounds Report, 11.01. We have the Buildings and Grounds Report for February of 2024. Mr. Buffington.
The report's been provided for your information. I just highlight that the work for the Southern Elementary Kindergarten Playground has started and actually has now been completed, as well as work on the baseball and softball batting cages and warm-up pitching areas have started as well. And we did have a couple volunteers help in those efforts. The water test report 11.02 is also provided for your information. As you can see, the coliform tests taken at the main campus and Friendship were good, are safe.
So 11.03, we have the Susquehannock High School project progress report, financial report, and timeline. So I would like to say that although we're not going to have a slide tonight for...
No, I think we do.
We are going to have a slide.
We pulled that off.
All right, very good. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that happened. Good job. Mr. Buffett, go ahead.
So putting the three items together with the progress report, financial report, and timeline, just kind of update the board. 7 months to go. You know, we're pretty excited to try to get this thing completed, and we're well on its way. Just this week, some more classrooms were occupied, several months ahead of schedule, you know, so things are going well there. Still a bunch to go, but doing well. So for the financials, and that information comes off of the report, just kind of highlight overall the original budget, and then you can see the expenditures to date, the encumbrances and remaining budget, $848,907 for that first slide. And then if we go on to the second slide, show the contingency. At the beginning of February, the contingency was just under $400,000. In February, almost $14,000 in change orders. And then you can see the contingency at the end of February of $383,522. We'll, in a moment, talk about the one change order for this month, as well as there was one that the board approved last month that is reflected in those numbers. Any questions with that?
You did mention that we moved into some classrooms early. Is those different from the ones we did the tour, I guess, what, a week ago? You said there was more classrooms that are coming online after spring break. Are they the same ones?
They are.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Even earlier.
A couple days ahead of the spring break even, you know. So, yeah, for picture, basically from the new addition to the tower, that second floor. They're moving in. There's still some to move in, but yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, 11.04, change order approved on site for the Susquehanna High School project. As he mentioned earlier, one of the change orders was what we approved in the last board meeting, and that change order ultimately was paid for by the architect. And then we had one more change order, unfortunately, dealing with asbestos, and if you want to elaborate a little bit more on that.
Sure. Yeah. Those that have been around Susquehanna High School for a long time know that the original cafeteria was actually in the basement area. There was ductwork that runs from that basement all the way up through the roof. Unfortunately, gaskets in that ductwork actually have asbestos. That ductwork is in the area of mass demolition, so it was not a choice to leave it in place. We needed to remove it, so that that cost is to remove that the ductwork and with the asbestos gaskets in it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to the facility study. So I guess I'll start the motion first, and then we can have some time for discussion about this. So motion to approve the following. Request our attorney to update the request for proposal documents for a facility study. Number 2, request proposals for architectural firms to complete a district facility study with the emphasis of greatest needs projects at the Shrewsbury Elementary, Southern Middle School, and Southern Elementary School. And 3, approve a team to evaluate the proposals, including myself, William Hall, and Jeremy Hash as board members, and Mrs. Green and Mr. Buffington as well on this committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. So we, in our Budget and Finance meeting, talked a lot about our future spending, how that was all going to unfold. This study will basically be the backbone of what that will look like in our future, and will give us the older study. Is it 10 years old, Susan?
It's about 5.
5 years old, sorry. So 5 years old. I know some of the things on that we're taking care of already on that study. So this is going to give us a good picture of where we're moving in our facilities, and the work that we need to be cognizant of, and a timeline of trying to get it taken care of. So,
How long does something like that take? Like, I don't know what the timeline is to do a feasibility study, so I was just curious.
So our recommendation would be that we work to get the feasibility study out with the intent to hopefully be able to approve a design team by the June board meeting.
Okay.
That would allow folks to work over the summer and get the information, with the goal of mid to late fall next year, being able to bring back that study and then walk through the buildings to kind of understand what's going on. So that's our hope. We have a lot of other things going on, so we hope we can pull that off, but that's really what our goal would be.
Okay, thank you.
there's just a little tiny projects going on around here. I mean,
There's a lot of stuff going on. So again, one of the things going to be, we did this about 5 years ago. Mr. Hall mentioned having the attorney updated. It's really important to make sure that when you're looking at the AIA documents that we have those rewritten to make sure they protect the school district, when they're really written to protect the professional team. So we have our folks go through those each time. So that's an important part. Depending on how long that takes is going to kind of determine our timeline, but that is a critical piece that Mr. Buffington and I really want to make sure we get that right before we go out for RFP.
Thank you.
thank you, Susan.
Oh, no, you just have to.
Any other comments? Any nays or abstentions?
I do have one comment, if I could just back up for a minute. How do we choose who does the feasibility study? And is that for sure that whoever does that is not guaranteed the work so that it's not inflated?
So what will happen is we'll get the documents prepared. Then we'll go out for a request for proposal. We'll get firms, we'll turn in their proposals. We'll narrow that, the four of us as a team will narrow those down and do interviews depending on which firms we believe scored the highest on the matrix. We'll interview those teams. We'll bring those back to the board, hopefully no later than June, for a recommendation for that professional. Generally how it works is they're not guaranteed the work, but usually they put a smaller fee in there and then you get that feedback if they end up doing the work. But the reason why we want to make sure all these documents are prepared to our best, in the best way we can, is because generally you do award to that architect. If they do a good time with the feasibility study, then we are going to give them the work. So we want to make sure we set everything up ahead of time to make sure all the legal things are in place.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I've wondered, over the years in getting these things, is that same contractor inflating the job as far as what is needed so that he believes he can get that work and take more from our purse.
So that would be another thing we'll be bringing to the board. We were debating whether to bring it at this point. Our recommendation is we'll wait to bring that, but we also recommend that we have pre-construction services so that we have an independent person looking at the costs in the feasibility study to make sure that they're correct. Because there is a difference between an architect and a construction manager on how they're looking at things. So that is another recommendation. So you're a step ahead of us a little bit, but that is one of the thoughts as we move down the timeline. Just because it is so important before you award bids, before you break ground, that you have all that legwork, have that all put in place in the best interest of the district. Randy, you're an expert on this. Do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, it's a lot easier to stay within budget, talking about construction manager and things and pre-con services and things, how important that is. We want to stay in budget, and it's easier to stay in budget before the shovel hits the ground than, afterwards. Obviously you can do both, but, yeah, certainly, the architect's not guaranteed the work, but if they do good work and, we like what they're doing, it's good to keep a good team together.
And what we're approving here is, first, the ability to make sure that our paperwork is in proper order. And then secondly, the process of working through multiple firms, narrowing down to that one firm that then potentially may be the one that's. So there is a narrowing process of firms in this motion. It's not looking at one individual. We look at multiple firms to boil down to who you think is going to be the right firm for what we're looking to do.
And to accent again the importance of that, the request for proposal and having an attorney's draft that is, obviously to protect the district. So certainly encourage that.
Just change order weary.
Any other comments or questions? All right, then. Any nays or abstentions? Okay, hearing none. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 11.06. I have a motion to award the base bid for ACIA Limited of York, PA in the amount of $20,575.08 for the purchase of HVAC filters for the 24-25 using ESSER funds. Do I have a second?
Second.
And this, as we've spoken before, this is the purchasing of the filters. The actual implementation of them being changed is something that we handle internally.
We do. Yeah, our staff do that. And this is the annual supply district-wide.
And this also came out of a bid process, correct?
It did.
And this was basically the best shot at, the most frugal shot at getting these filters, for good prices. So.
Yeah, we don't always bid. I mean, there's ways to use co-stars and different cooperatives, but we look and see, the best way, and it was, we believe that, bidding in this was good for us, and, we got 2 competitive bids and a third company that considered.
Good, thank you. So any questions or concerns? Okay, any nays or
Appreciate the
abstentions?
bid and the explanation and the savings. Saved about $6,000 there. That's good.
Okay, any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, moving on to 11.07, a motion to approve a proposal for engineered design services for the repair of the retaining wall at Friendship Elementary from Robert Walsh Associates LLC for a fee of $1,000. So, as per our discussion, this is a retaining wall at Friendship that the top courses are pushing. They're getting out of alignment, and there's concern of making repairs that would then divert water onto the neighbor's property. So Mr. Buffington felt that it was proper for $1,000 to have an engineer come in and look at these things to make sure that, first, that the repairs, solve the problem, and secondly, that the repairs do not create another problem by shedding water off of our property onto the neighbor property. So that's a little bit of background. Did I have a second?
Second.
Second, okay, thank you. Any questions or concerns?
No, thank you for the background and explaining so thoroughly.
Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to 11.08. We have use of facilities. This is informational for each one of us. Moving on to 11.09, I have other items of business, which I do not have any.
Actually, based on Mr. Apgar, right? Apgar? Based on his comments, I think I've had some of the same questions myself. So I think it would be good to hear. I know our next board meeting is short notice, so I'm not going to give you that short a timeline, but it would be good to hear in a near-term board meeting some kind of analysis of, is there a reason we're holding the land? Is there any kind of projected use for it? Especially given that enrollment trends are downward, and there doesn't seem to be any change in that for the foreseeable future. I think that it'd be wise to look at that and see whether the school's interests are served by continuing to hold that land. So again, April meeting's probably a little rough to ask for that, but maybe shoot for May. And if that's really difficult, because I don't know what I'm asking, if that's really difficult, let me know. And that can be just a really preliminary analysis. I mean, we can take the time we need to look at this issue.
Okay, any other items? Hearing none, Mr. President.
All right, moving on to item 12, transportation and safety. I'll turn it over to Mr. Hash.
We have a transportation report from February. Their first student is still actively recruiting for a location manager position. They have somebody as acting, but still looking. During the month of February, there were a total of 8 red light violations reported. Of the 8 violations, 1 was caught on a camera, and 7 were captured through driver observation. That is all I have for that. We are going to move on to a transportation presentation by Susan Green and Ms. Shields. Before they do that, though, you can go going up. I did reach out to Susan and administration to observe the evacuation of the school buses. And just for the rest of the board, let me tell you, they got hundreds of kids off these buses and back on for the middle school in 20 minutes. It was fantastic. Ms. Shields had her team, which she pulled from every department, it seemed like, running very, very efficiently. So it was very cool to see that. She did not waste any time making these people move. So that was kudos to you and your staff for doing that and for letting me come watch.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So we're just going to do a little dive into transportation information for the board. There is a lot to our system of transportation, so we just want to give you some information. So our objectives this evening is to give some background information, talk about our types of transportation, including home to school, special needs, and private school transportation. Emphasis on safety for our students, we'll talk about that, and then some of the transportation challenges that we experience on a day-to-day basis. So our fleet is made up of buses from First Student, who is our student transportation company. They're not our employees, but they're definitely our team members and our drivers, so we consider them part of our team. We have 27 full buses, so that includes 72, 77, and 84 passenger buses. So you'll see we're getting some larger buses to do some of the bigger areas in the district where they can navigate. We do have one 48-passenger bus, 5 minibuses, one wheelchair minibus, and then 5 vans. We transport almost 3,000 public school students each day, including our special needs students, and we transport 66 private school students.
Okay, so now that we know a little bit about our fleet, I wanted to talk a little bit about some terms. Maybe we can talk about a little bit more about some terms. I'm sorry, my mouth is so dry right now. Talk a little bit about more some terms. No, I have some. Thank you. So one of our terms that I like to talk about is our secondary and elementary school routes, the routes specifically. A lot of times parents will give us a call and they don't understand what the word secondary means. They think that it's kind of all encompassed, everybody, all the kids get on the bus from the same area and things. So I think going over the terms might be a little bit helpful for the community. So our secondary routes are composed of our high school students and our middle school students from all over the district for all of the areas for all 5 of the schools. Our elementary school students are all for our 3 elementary school zones for Friendship, Shrewsbury, and Southern Elementary. Our second term I'd like to talk a little bit about is our in-district transportation for specialized services. This is services that we provide for any students who have special needs. This is for specifically the wheelchair or special kind of chairs or things like that, or seat constraints and things that students may need specialized for. The next term is a little bit about a layover. I'm not sure how many people know what a layover is. I always think of an airplane, kind of thinking when you're flying. Pardon me one second. So with that, I get a lot of parents, what's a layover? I see a bus driver sitting on the side of the road over there. Why are they sitting there? What does that mean? What are they doing? So helping them understand what a layover actually is. A layover really is just a part of a plan where the person may actually have to pull over for a short period of time in order to maintain their time frame and travel distance. So they have to wait in order to start for their second run. The next one I wanted to talk about is a double run. A double run is probably one of the most confusing that I've talked about with parents on the phone. A double run really is just an example, would be more of one school bus particularly going to a school, picking up a load of students in the area, going to the school and dropping off at that school, and then going back and picking up more students in that same area, and then going back to that same exact school for a double run. We see that right now with our Shrewsbury students. Let's see, our next one I'd like to talk a little bit about is a delay. This is one of our favorite, right? So a delay can happen any time of the day. So we have a morning delay that we can experience. We have several afternoon delays that we can experience. So some of the delays that we usually see or hear about in the morning are high volumes for traffic. A lot of the ones we might have for calling on the radio are they're stuck behind a buggy or a trash truck. So they're experiencing those types of things. Other delays are just very unpredictable. It could be a weather issue. It could be a power line down, a tree. We're not sure what the actual delay could be.
A cow.
A cow. Several cows. My chicken. In the morning, that's a lot of the things that we hear in the mornings. However, in the afternoon, it's a little bit different. So sometimes we struggle with getting kids loaded on time at the school. And the reason for this is because we want the students to be careful. We want to make sure first we're taking safety precautions very serious. We want to make sure each of these students are getting on the correct bus. We want to make sure each student knows that it's okay to take your time to get on this bus. We don't want them to trip and fall and hurt themselves. So we do take some time, a little bit of extra time, I'll say, at the school, loading at the school. Let's see. Drivers may experience issues with students when they're loading at the school. There's always sometimes there's behavior issues where we have to address it at the school before they even leave the school building. So it's not always a timely process. And we at the district, from the building, we don't always know about these things. So they're kind of going on simultaneously while there's, other parts moving. Okay, so the next one I want to talk a little bit about is route changes. As our community grows and develops, it really does reflect those route changes. So a family changes address, they move from one location to another location, that address affects that route. So understanding that route change is going to happen, it's inevitable. Anytime a student moves from one location to another, it affects that route tremendously in some cases, depending on where you are in the community. Right, so if you think about that, the one thing we want to communicate is, so if we have a student moving, they might move within our district, but if we had to take them off one route, put them on another, the route they took off is going to get faster. The route they put on is going to get possibly slower, depending on whether it's a new stop. So as we're talking about some of these things, this is the thing to understand. This is a huge mammoth system that has a lot of moving parts, and we really want to, that's what we're trying to communicate tonight. Some of the things that Mrs. Shields is talking about,
with secondary and elementary school runs and layovers and staggers, we can't have 3 buses get behind each other, or they're all going to stop. We can't have them all come on campus at the same time, or we're going to have a traffic jam. We have to stagger them as they come in. When Mr. Hash was here last week for bus evacuation, you saw they come in a couple at a time, and that's purposeful, or else we're going to have a big old traffic jam going on here. So it is a well-oiled machine, and there's a lot of moving parts, not to mention the least of which is we're dealing with small children. So they're unpredictable too.
And with those route changes come roster changes. So we do our due diligence to make sure that we're updating those rosters every single time a student comes off of one bus and moves to another bus. It's very important that we know and identify what students are on those buses is critical for the case of an emergency. Sometimes kids get bus passes, and the parent might forget that day where that kid is going for that day. It happens. I'm a parent. My kid told me she was going to a friend's house. I got a bus pass. I'm thinking she's on her bus, and she's not there. We're all human. So those things do happen. So in the case of rosters, we do have a very significant oversight of that particular process, as well as the bus pass process. Okay, so now we're going to just jump into the day of a life of a bus driver. So as a prior bus driver, I do have a little bit of experience in that area. You could get up as early as 6 a.m. to start your shift. We started with a pre-trip inspection. For anybody who's had CDL, you're familiar with a pre-trip inspection. You're really just walking around that vehicle to make sure nothing's broken, nothing's leaking, nothing's not, the vehicle can move properly. So that's what your pre-trip inspection is. Each bus has two morning runs and 2 afternoon runs. A lot of people, when they call, they have questions around those runs, like, well, I thought it was all one run. So it's really breaking it down, helping them understand that it's 2 runs, 2 morning runs, 2 afternoon ones. One's for elementary, one's for secondary, same thing in the afternoon. At the end of their day, it's a lot of paperwork. Sometimes it's in the morning as well, depending. Most kids like to sleep in the morning on the way to school. However, there are situations where kids may not want to sleep on the way to school, and there may be some mischief going on. There may be some reports, such as misconduct reports, that they have to do midday. Especially around the end of the day, we do see those things. So at the end of the day, they're doing a lot of paperwork. Mileage reports, misconduct reports, any kind of an incident report. We have them write all of those things up so that we can keep track of what's going on each bus. Another thing that drivers are doing is, I'm not sure that a lot of our community is aware of field trips and things like that drivers help out throughout the day, in the middle of the day. They're also taking a lot of athletic trips. They help support local churches with programs that they have coming to and from. Although we may not host those events personally, those buses are still out there moving about for our community. So I just wanted to say, did you know that you have to be a CDL-operated driver's license, person with a driver's license in order to operate a vehicle? A lot of people are not aware that you must obtain a CDL in order to be a bus driver. So it's a very critical phase you go through. It's a lot of training that you go through for anybody who may have a CDL. I see a smile over there. And most buses, now Sue alluded to earlier the sizes of the buses. Now this specific bus here is our 72 passenger bus that we have. It's around 20,000 pounds total, and it's about 40 foot long. So can you imagine that thing going down the road? Just thinking of those numbers. 20,000 pounds of a hard bus going down the road at, 25 miles an hour may not seem like much, but it is. Particularly 40 foot long. So turning around is definitely not easy. And backing up is definitely not an option. It's not something we like for them to do. So also, did you know that the incidents that occur during transit must be addressed right away. So we take that very serious. A lot of times I'll take calls from parents that are concerned because the bus had to pull over to a safe location in order to address behaviors. There may be a nosebleed, a student is injured. We have to stop and make sure we're addressing those right away. So if you do hear from community members, I see a bus sitting on the side of the road, it's more than likely that they've radioed that into the school district, so we're aware of what's going on. We know that they're sitting there. We know who's on the bus. We know what's going on. In most cases, I say that they're very good at communicating that. Okay, so the next one's mine too. Special needs transportation, in district and out of school district. So for our out of school district, for our in school districts transportation, we utilize First Student as our vendor for 5 different schools, all 5 of our schools. For our out of district schools, I'm not sure that a lot of people are aware of, we actually work through the IU, and we are supporting 12 different schools out of district. So we're actually in a total of doing 17 schools total for all of our students across the entire school district. We also support for transportation for our homeless students. So anyone experiencing homelessness, we're transporting them sometimes in the school district or out of the school district in the event that they have to be placed out of the school district. So we're also doing that.
So we also do private school transportation. We have, in the last 5 years, we have anywhere from 55 to 75 students that go to private school transportation. We utilize 5 vehicles for the schools listed there: Shrewsbury Christian Academy, St. John the Baptist, Red Lion Christian School, and York Country Day School. And you may say, when you look at that list, some of those schools are outside of our district. We'll talk about why we have to transport to those schools. Private school transportation, we use one 48-passenger bus, one minibus, and 2 vans to transport those students. So we are required by law in the state of Pennsylvania to transport private school students within a 10-mile radius of our borders. So for instance, you're basically going from the border, not from where the child lives. So a child could live in Cadorus Township and want to go to St. John the Baptist. If they're an elementary school student in our district, they would go to Friendship, which is very near their home in Cadorus Township or in Glen Rock. But if they're going to St. John the Baptist, it is far for them to go from Cadorus to there. They also, that same family could choose to go to York Country Day. Because York Country Day is 10 miles from our border, we do need to transport there, but it is a far drive from Cadorus Township or New Freedom to go to York Country Day. So as you're thinking about this, it's not really whether they're in the district or where they're located, it's really about our borders. So we do have students going to St. Joe's in Hanover. Also, we do a private school contract with the parent for that because they're willing to transport, and we have a couple children there. So we do that if it's feasible and the parent agrees to it. It's a win-win for both parties. But just so everybody understands, we are required to do that, and it is that 10-mile radius of our borders, not from where the child lives.
Okay, so we wanted to take a little bit of time tonight to talk about red light violations. I'm sure most of you have heard about the red light violations across our school district and the initiative that we've been taking on it. A bus driver, Dave Lebo, and I did a presentation last year on it, and we just kind of wanted to touch base a little bit on it today as well. So some of the things that we're trying to educate the community on is the must stop, you must stop kind of rule. So some of the time, one thing that we want to try to get out there to the community is that if you see the red flashing lights, regardless of what your thoughts are, you just stop. If you're not sure, you're not 100% certain of what to do, just stop. At the intersection, a lot of people are very confused with an intersection, what you're supposed to do. And I've seen it myself. You come up upon an intersection, you see a bus, they're on one side of the road and you're stopping, they have their reds deployed, they stop their bus, a car may turn in front of them. They think it's okay because they're not on that side of the road. So really helping them understand that you must stop at an intersection, all the way around, you must stop. The best practice is, I tried to look it up to see if there was an actual rule for it, but it sounds like it's more of a best practice for the 10 feet away from the school bus to stop. I really learned that very early on when I got my CDL license for the 10 feet, because when you're going at a high rate of speed in a car and a bus is going at 25 miles an hour down a road, that 10 feet may seem like nothing to you in that small car, but in that big vehicle, your stop time is very different. It's very different. So that 10 feet apart is very important for drivers to understand, particularly students. So we're seeing a lot with students not really noticing that. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Another thing that we're trying to get out there is if you're not sure and there's students walk in, just make sure you're stopping and making sure the students across the street before you start moving again.
So the question we get, and it's actually a question I've asked the bus drivers and Mrs. Shields, is what happens if I'm driving down the road and I'm getting so close to the bus and the red lights go on? Now what do I do? Because that bus is moving and I'm moving. Stop. So we just want to emphasize at that point, you may be halfway past the bus, just stop. Once you realize those red lights are there, stop, because you don't know where the kids are and where the buses are. That is a question we have quite a bit.
And that's a good point too, Stu. So some of the things that we're doing in this school district as well as with the drivers is being more proactive, trying to come up with ways that we can help the students and the parents, educate them on what they can do to help support the process as well. So signaling, the drivers have a signal to the students, and I know that sometimes we forget to mention that when we get new kids on board, so really having them hone in and understanding how important it is for each student to understand what that signal is. So the signal for most bus drivers is a thumbs up. So you're engaging with that student before they even start crossing the street or be able to board the bus. You're making sure you're making that eye contact. You're giving them the thumbs up to make sure they know that it's okay to go past, to come on board. The second thing is they're starting a don't open your door policy. So we had a red light runner the other day, it was really a yellow light runner. So ideally, if that driver is being vigilant and they're looking down that road, they're getting ready to deploy your reds, you have the ability to control that door. You're not going to open that door until you know that car is passed. Although your red may be out and a person may see your reds out, you have the ability to open that door. Keep the door closed until you see that car is passed, because you don't want to harm any children. You don't want anybody to get off that bus. So they're not practicing that a lot. The don't open the door policy.
That's when the children are on the bus and getting off.
Correct. So they are the only ones that can control that door. So if you're out there and you see those reds and you're thinking, oh my gosh, the door is going to open, just pause. They're kind of understanding that we're not going to fly that door right open. They don't have an automatic where it's just flipping out there. They have the ability to put that hand up to make sure that it's there. So you could see the reds and you may panic and you may say, is there a kid running? If they see a car coming, they're doing their due diligence to make sure that they're getting that car past before they flip that door switch. So the last thing is really educating the parents on those types of things, making sure that they understand what part they can take to help those students understand, to make sure you're making that eye connection and that that door is not open and the kid's not coming out.
We went really fast there. Okay. So the next thing we wanted to talk about in relation to safety is awareness and advertisement use. So we have a couple of folks coming forward to talk about ways we can get this out in the community more. So we will continue to educate the community like we're doing tonight, continue with newsletters. We put it in our newsletter almost every month. We also want to emphasize to our bus drivers to continue to submit all red light violation forms, even if we don't have the information. So that's one thing we're continuing to work on. Even if we don't know everything on that list, it's important for us to analyze what happened. Sometimes we have a situation in an intersection where if we can move the bus a little, it might help. So we're asking them to, even if they don't have a lot, give us anything you have so we can try to figure out what the solution is. We're also looking at mitigating the risk with stop assignments. Where we can, moving the buses to a more safe location, have students get off on the door side if at all possible. Now, I'm going to say this about that because we want to be careful. We cannot do all door side drop-offs. So I just want to be careful as we're talking about that. If we have a road that is 25 miles an hour, you can see in all directions, we're probably fine having the student cross the street. And remember, we are working with our students. You don't cross in the morning and you don't cross in the afternoon until you get the signal from the bus driver. So again, it's only going to be harmful. We don't want anyone running the reds. But we're doing everything we can to not have the children move until we know it's safe. And that's really probably our most proactive thing we can do. So that's something we're really continuing with. The other thing with this is we can't have a bus stop, every couple feet. We have to stay 100 feet away. So we can't, a lot of people don't realize that, but you only can have a bus stop every 100 feet. So as we work through that, we're continuing to look at those. Continuing to rotate our bus cameras. So we do have 3 bus cameras, but we have the ability to put them on all buses. So we purposely did that. So if all of a sudden, someone's bus we're starting to have issues, we can move that camera around. So some of the things that we're exploring are awareness possibilities to discuss. While we put it in our newsletter frequently, we also want to reach out over the summer months to see if in August we can have it put in the newsletter of all the municipalities. We think that would be very helpful to try to get out to more residents, because it's not just our parents that are out there in the mornings when our buses are moving, it's other community members. We're also looking at the possibility of maybe doing banners. We could, there are a lot of community members that would be willing to put those in their yards to kind of look at especially in those places where we're having problems. And then the third option, while I don't think it's necessarily a bad option, is the billboard option. It's a little limited in that we would put it up probably for a month or two. It's a little more expensive. And then it's really only in one area of our community.
So that's probably the thing that concerns us the most about maybe using a billboard, is that you're really just hitting one area, and with newsletters and/or banners, we might be able to hit more areas in the district. So the other thing we wanted to talk about is some of the challenges we're facing. We are facing a challenge of unreasonable expectations. We have quite a few calls on a daily basis of things like, my child is 4 minutes late. My bus is not here. The bus didn't wait, my kid was putting their shoes on. So, we just want to make sure, again, that we're emphasizing expectations. Students should be at the bus stop 5 minutes before the bus gets there. We have a 10-minute rule. That can fluctuate 10 minutes either direction. Because remember, you think about when you're going to the grocery store on a Saturday morning, the things that you can encounter on that short trip. We're doing big trips with lots of children. So it really is not reasonable to think that your child's going to be home at exactly the time or picked up at exactly the time. So we do need a little bit of leeway there. We don't mind the calls, but when we get the same calls over and over, there's really not a whole lot we can do about that. 4 minutes, when Rita tells me this, I always say, that's pretty good, because I think 4 minutes for this kind of transportation is very reasonable. We can have ride time up to 60 minutes, because we get that too. My child's on the bus too long. We don't have any children, unless maybe they have special needs in another district or in Lancaster that we have to take them, that they're on for that long. We try to keep those very, very reasonable. We talked about the stop expectations. We're getting a lot of that where I need a home stop. We can't do home stops for everyone. So again, we have to look at where is it safe for the bus to stop, and that's our biggest piece. Where is it safe for the children and for the bus and for the community? And pick up and arrival times. We kind of joke, we're not a taxi service. We just want to set the expectations that they're reasonable. And for us, safety is paramount. We do have things with our students, and when we have a safety incident, we're not worrying about getting out the school messenger. We will get out a school messenger as soon as we can, but what we're worried about when we have a safety incident on a bus, like a child injured or something else going on, we're worried about taking care of that situation. We are hearing more, I didn't get a school messenger. My bus was 15 minutes late. I didn't get a school messenger. So here's what the expectations, again, we want to put out for that is if we have, because we talk about secondary and elementary, if our bus gets behind on the secondary run, and we know that they're not at the elementary school on time, we can definitely send out a school messenger. We do immediately. But if that bus loads and leaves that elementary school on time, and something happens on the route, we're not going to probably be able to get a school messenger out. Because by the time we hear from the driver who's dealing with the situation, craft the message and get it sent out, the bus may or may not be there at that point. The other thing we find is if we put that school messenger out and we say that bus is going to be 15 minutes late, and it's only 11 minutes late, now we don't have parents at the bus stop to pick up those children. Which we see as worse than the parents having to sit for 5 minutes is a child getting off the bus. So it is a very tricky situation. How late's that bus going to be after we deal with the situation? Because we don't know. And for us, I always tell Rita, you think it's 20? Tell them 15. Tell them 10. Because we have so many times where, well, you told me it was going to be 20 minutes, so I wasn't there. Well, we can't have children standing there. So it is not a... While we try really hard, we're not going to be able to tell you every time if it's a couple minutes late. And that's really something we're really seeing a lot of this year. And I kind of wanted to, it's one of the reasons we wanted to do the presentation is to make people understand we do the best we can, but it's a lot of kids and a lot of things going on that we have to work through. And then this summer, we will be looking at routes. We do expect that there will be some maybe significant changes. We do have a little bit of change of enrollment. Our buses at Southern Elementary School are pretty full because we were getting more of our enrollment there. So we're going to have to make some changes. So we wanted to kind of point that out. And we'll try to get that information out for parents as soon as possible. But it's something we probably will need to make some more some bigger changes than maybe we did last year.
Sure. So it's our pleasure to do transportation for our children. We really do appreciate the support that we get from the community as well as the bus drivers. They're phenomenal at what they do. It's not an easy job. I did it. I loved it. I miss it. I really emphasize on the support that they need from us as a community, as a school district, as well as the support the school district needs from them. So working together, I think, is going to be helpful in continuing to talk about those issues that they're facing, the issues that we're facing, and the issues the community is facing. I think is going to keep us all together in the right direction. Sue alluded to it a little bit earlier. Safety is our first priority. That's as the school district and the bus company, regardless of the situation. A parent may get frustrated. We're always going to take that first step in the safety direction before we communicate, before we do anything. It's always going to be safety first. Our goal is, to have a positive encounter with every child every single day. At the beginning of the day, the driver may be the first person they see in the day that's going to smile at them. You never know what they're going to experience. So, keeping that positive interaction with that driver as well as the school district, and keeping it together again, the more cohesive relationship we can build, I think would be the best thing that we can continue to do. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it does sound like the red light violations have been in decline, which is great. Do you feel like we have enough red light cameras?
I don't know I don't know how to answer that question, I guess. So I don't feel, our presentation that we did prior year really focused around the camera itself and not the ability for that camera to save a life. So in my opinion, do we have enough cameras? I think we have enough cameras for the purpose of what we're doing for data. In terms of the purpose of saving a life, I do not think there will ever be enough cameras anywhere for that case.
Because the camera itself can't actually save a life.
Correct.
But it does sound like they've had some positive movement in
Yes, so I think
driving down the violations.
Yep, so I think with the cameras, what I have gotten out of it a lot is really mitigating that risk. Being able to look at that video, going out to the location, seeing what's going on, and figuring out how we can move that route and keep that student safe instead of trying to figure out where to put more cameras.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. What would you say is bus drivers' biggest challenge in the school bus on the way to school, outside of everything else that they have to pay attention to?
Student behavior. Student behavior on the bus is probably the most difficult for a driver. I think some people think that they're just driving, and we have to realize they're a classroom on wheels. They are literally, Susie needs a Band-Aid, Johnny hit her with a book, there's traffic coming at you. They have to focus 100% on that road as well as keep an eye on what's going on behind their mirror. So those student issues that they experience every day, we value the misconduct reports. That might sound crazy, but we value that information, the feedback we get from those misconduct reports, because it allows us to get that information to the buildings, to the principals, so they can have those conversations with those little ones to really dig in and figure out what's going on. What can we do to help fix? So to answer your question, it's definitely the misconduct.
And do you feel like the support in policy and student handbooks and those kinds of things, that's helpful and it all works itself out? When those misconduct reports are coming in, they're being actioned, the students are being deterred from those behaviors, and it improves over time?
I think so. I do. I think one of the, I guess for lack of better words, one of the misconceptions is that we are sticking to the policy from a school district standpoint. A driver's frustration may be that they're not getting that information back from us about what steps were taken, because we're not going to give that information. It's not for us to give information about what's happening with that child or that student's behavior after it's been reported. We do let them know that we have addressed the situation, and usually they see quick results. But I think sometimes they want to know what happened, and we can't give that information.
Thank you.
Just on the awareness possibilities among newsletters, banners, and billboards, I think one of us proposed that during the during the session we had going over this agenda, the banners in particular. I just wanted to highlight, I think that of all, I think that's the most effective and probably most cost-effective option. They're cheaper than a billboard. You can put them in more places. They're reusable, and a banner stands out in some ways more than a billboard because it wasn't there the week before. You put them up during that first week of school or so, and then you take them down, once, after a few weeks have passed. So I think that's really worth board looking into, because you get 10 banners for $500 or whatever, and you can reuse them year after year. Whereas a billboard, you pay for it once, $1,000, and you never get it again unless you pay again.
And it's usually in one location. So
One location, yes. You put the banners in a lot more locations. You can choose what the best locations are. And you guys highlighted that, but I just wanted to bring that up. When it comes to the challenges of letting parents know about delays, I wonder if these days there's an app for that. Because, now it's a much more complicated thing. But, I know when my kids are going to be getting home, because there's an app that actually tells me, how far away they are and that sort of thing. I know when my Domino's pizza is going to arrive, more or less. So this is far more complicated, so I'm not saying that any of those apps would do it, but I wonder if there's something out there because it'd be really nice to make it more effective, but also take that off of your plate, having to write those emails all the time and try to stay on top of that and getting and fielding all those calls. So just something to consider if that's out there.
I think on a perfect day, I believe there is, but one of the challenges becomes, so your little one might ride bus 2, but we had to have bus 2 in for inspection, so now bus 2 is really bus 18 with a sticker over top of it. So now your app's probably not going to work because they're not on.
Well, unless it's an app on the bus driver's phone, because if it's the same driver, right, then it would track the location of that driver relative to where their drop-off is.
Amazon deliveries.
I don't know if this is even something that exists.
We'll have to look into it.
Yeah, just throwing it out there if it makes your life easier. Yeah.
I feel the banner thing, when we were talking about the billboard, and like we said, one location, we looked at when we ran for election, it's expensive. If somebody in Cadoras is not going to see a banner, a billboard in Shrewsbury, so that was like the least effective, we thought. Banners would probably be in the mid, but for a newsletter, for every municipality, what we're calling it, that goes to every house in that municipality, and I would guesstimate that most of them would do it for low or no cost. And that's, there are people that are going to be driving around that aren't going to see a banner. They do get a newsletter.
A lot of them don't look at them.
True.
Yeah.
But how many times you go by a banner and don't look at it?
Right. Well, if I see a banner that's not normally there, I probably notice it. But I think that's one of those things that could be a both and.
It could be. Yeah.
Because I think the newsletters, I think most municipalities are probably willing to put that in the newsletter without any cost to us. So that's the most cost effective.
There's no downside to that.
Yeah, there's no downside to the newsletters. The question is, do we do banners as well? Because that's going to catch different.
Fully open to it, but I would say as far as cost effectiveness, it's probably going to be newsletters, banners, then billboards probably last, because that just
Yeah.
I wonder also.
In terms of bang for your buck, that's true.
Participation with the local boroughs and, the municipalities, what their participation with banners might be. It's worth reaching out and seeing.
Yeah, like I said, I think most municipalities would probably be willing to put it in their newsletter.
No, the banners.
Oh, the banners. Oh, okay. Would be willing to put them out, yeah.
New Freedom's newsletter goes out quarterly.
So that might be an issue if the timing is not near the beginning of the school year.
try to shoot it for close to the beginning of the year.
Yeah, you either try to hit before or shortly after the school year starts, just for whenever it comes out.
Maybe with the banners, you might be able to get close to the areas where the infractions are happening. Maybe raise awareness at that, where I don't know if there is frequency, that it's occurring in the same places?
There isn't, that's exactly the reason why we thought more about on the banner side of it, because you could put them in those areas where the infractions are occurring. We just didn't want to put all that information out today, because we're still studying a lot of it, so we don't want to freak anybody out about this area is a hot spot, that area is not. So we definitely could solidify some areas with banners that are potential hot spots.
And it's hard to imagine a member of our community saying, oh no, I'm not behind that.
Well, they do, their neighbor probably will. So, in one way or another, you can probably get one around there.
I will say that First Student's trying to get very creative with the way they're putting out some information as well, and they've reached out to us on several, avenues and partnerships to figure out ways to get more information out to the community. Over the past few months, they've did a lot of parades. They've handed out flyers with safety messages on them. They're going to continue doing that. There's a parade, I believe, coming up in New Freedom soon. They're going to do a big school bus safety thing on that, hand out flyers as well. So hopefully they'll gather a lot of information for a large target audience down in New Freedom during that time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much for that. I will turn it over to other items of business. Anybody? All right. President Hinkle, back to you.
All right, Ms. Doberman?
Thank you. Item number 1301, the athletic report. The Warriors are currently wrapping up a strong winter season, while spring sports are starting to ramp up, which they already are ramping up. They're already playing. Below, you will find the current highlights. These are mostly from last week. I didn't get the updates for swimming for states, but I will update you with districts. But wrestling, congratulations, Warrior wrestlers Jack Van Tassel and Jada Stoneberg for reaching the PIA AA Southern Central Regional tournaments in their respective weight classes. Also, congratulations to the Warrior Wrestling team for winning the YAIAA Division II Sportsmanship Award this season. For swimming, and help me with names, here we go. On March 1st and 2nd, the Warrior swim team competed in the PIAA District 3 Championship at Cumberland Valley High School. The girls' team finished 8th overall, while the boys' team finished 5th place. Below, you will find the medal winners. The boys' team. For the 200 medley relay, 4th place, Tyler Burgess, Tyler Wright, Isaiah Voss, and Jack Hammond. The 200 free relay, they placed 7th, Isaiah Voss, Jackson Hollinger, Jackson Elliott, and Jack Hammond. The 400 freestyle relay, they placed 5th with Tyler Burgess, Ben Holum, Jackson Hollinger, and Tyler Wright. Jackson Hollinger also placed 7th in the 200 freestyle relay, not the relay, just the 200 freestyle, and he also placed 4th in the 500 freestyle. Tyler Burgess placed 6th in the 500 freestyle. Tyler Wright placed 2nd in the 100 butterfly, 4th place in the 100 breaststroke. Jack Hammond placed 8th in the 50 freestyle. For the girls, the 200 freestyle relay, they placed 5th, Kate and Lauren Kalmanovich, and Gracie Burden, and Caitlin Ketterman. The 400 freestyle relay, they placed 5th, was Caitlin Ketterman, Sarah Weitzeldorfer, Lauren, and Kate Kalmanovich. Kate Kalmanovich placed 4th in the 100 butterfly, 3rd place in the 500-yard freestyle. Lauren Kalmanovich placed 6th in the 100 backstroke. The Warriors swam as states at Bucknell University on March 14th and 16th. I know they didn't do as well as they were hoping, but I don't have those current results. So, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Item 14, other business. I have none. Anyone else? Wonder if we need that and new business. I'm not sure. Moving on to item 15.01, Legislative Council. Ms. Marilee Hall.
All right, yes, thank you, Mr. President. So the Senate and the House representatives were adjourned from our last board meeting until Monday this week. So there's not a whole lot to report there, but they continue to discuss the governor's budget proposal, and there'll be more to come in the next meeting. Grant application periods are opening for public school facility improvements and environmental repairs. The Department of Community and Economic Development will provide $100 million in grants to school districts for eligible facility improvements, and the Department of Education announced $75 million in funding available to abate and remediate environmental hazards, including asbestos. So the Public Department of Education, or Pennsylvania Department of Education, excuse me, will accept applications from May 1st to June 30th for these grants. Only one application will be accepted from each school district and can contain several projects in more than one school building within each district. So the grants will be awarded based on the type of contamination incurred after July 1st, 2023. So I know that Mrs. Green and Mr. Carrington and Mr. Buffington are on top of that, and if we qualify for anything, I'm sure they will be on it. Southern Middle School Student Council is also doing some exciting things up at the Capitol. They paid a visit this month. House Representative Kate Klunk and Senator Kristen Phillips Hill welcomed our students and shared the beauty of the Capitol's architectural history and the important work that takes place within. Hats off to our young leaders at SMS. The Student Council exemplified courtesy, interest, and joy during their tour. So thank you to our local legislators for showing them around. PSBA is also hosting Spring Advocacy Day at the State Capitol on Monday, April 8th. All school board directors, school business managers, and superintendents are welcome to attend this complimentary event and advocate for key education issues. PSBA will schedule meetings with legislators and provide resources and messaging to support your visit. Morning check-in will be around 8 o'clock in the morning at the Capitol Rotunda, and the Secretary of Policy and Planning, Akbar Hussein, will be joining participants at 8:30 in the morning in the 60 East Wing for a morning brief to discuss educational administration priorities. The PSBA website offers the opportunity to pre-register using your My PSBA account access if you plan on going. Also, the 2024 PSBA legislative platform will be open soon for school boards to submit changes to additions to the core legislative principles of advocacy throughout the following year. PSBA's purpose in doing so is to provide the best possible education for children, develop responsible, self-reliant, and independent citizens with essential knowledge and skills. It's important to look over these principles and offer any collective board feedback that will add to PSBA's advocacy efforts for public schools in Pennsylvania. The window to submit proposals to PSBA will be April 1st to June 28th, so be on the lookout for an email communication from PSBA welcoming board feedback with an attachment including the current core legislative principles for your review. So I encourage all my board colleagues to go over those principles and prepare any feedback for discussion in our next few board meetings. We'll need to submit anything that we'd like to adjust to Mrs. Green so that she can give it to PSBA within that deadline period. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. 15.02, York County School of Technology, Ms. Dalberman.
I don't have anything to report at
All
this
right.
time.
15.03, LIU 12, there is a report attached for your information. Does anyone have any additional information on that? No? York Adams Tax Bureau, Mrs. Green? Nothing to report? All right. Burn through this. So Southern York County School District Foundation, back to you, Mrs. Marilee Hall.
All right, yes, thank you. So our last meeting was held March 12th at Southern Middle School. The annual Foundation Leadership Recognition Dinner Committee met, as well as the Scholarship Awards Ceremony Committee. The air is full of excitement as the time is drawing near to recognize student achievement with scholarship awards. Give Local York is also coming up soon. The SYCSD Foundation looks forward to participating once again in Give Local by hosting a silent auction to begin April 22nd at 9 a.m. until Monday, April 29th at 9 p.m. All proceeds will be used to help fund scholarships and alumni programs. If anyone out there or any of you have an item you'd like to donate for the silent auction, please contact Tia Walker. Her number is 717-235-4811, extension 7278, or you can email her at tia.walker@sycsd.org. And of course, the foundation is grateful for any contribution you might like to offer that someone would like to bid on. Also, a huge thank you, as Dr. Bryson was saying earlier, to the community, staff, and students for their participation and the support of the 2024 Battle of the Buildings. The event was a tremendous success, raising $8,761 for the foundation, and attendees also came prepared, donating much-needed warm outdoor gear for Coats of Friendship. Thank you to the Susquehannock High School Student Council for offering incentive there. They had raffle prize opportunities for visitors with donations, and they worked very hard to make some really fun baskets that were offered. So lots of donors walked away very happy with their winnings, and it was so wonderful to see all the smiling faces of students in the district from every building. Looking forward to next year. So the next foundation meeting will be held on Tuesday, April 9th at the high school library. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Moving on to item 16.01, the student activities report for February 2024 is attached for your information. 16.02, resignations and retirements. Looks like there are 6 of them. Got four retirements, 2 resignations, all in board docs for your information. Item 16.03, other items of business. I have none. Anyone else? Moving on to item 17.01, the home education, outside cyber charter, and Southern York Digital Academy education statistics are attached for your information. And announcements by board president and superintendent. I don't believe I have any, so I will turn it over to Dr. Bryson.
Nor do I.
Oh, all right. Get out of here before 11 after all. New business. I think we probably covered it in the other items of business from the committee reports. Anyone have new business? No? All right.
To make some up if you want.
No. We're going to make it out before 11. All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll entertain a motion.
Oh, motion, yeah.
There we go.
I'll second.
All right. Any nays or abstentions? We are adjourned. It just was such a commitment. I thought,